usher yesterday had trouble. She could barely speak.
It's the season, right?
Yeah. Yeah, do you know whether she's going to be there?
Was it finance related? Like, for the finance committee, she wasn't. What else might have been?
She did go.
She hears me. Yeah. I'm trying to figure out, there was also a press release that came out today in relation to the governor's office put out.
I know I got invited to this press conference about taxes. They called me at 11 o'clock and the press conference was over. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, we're good. Yes, tomorrow's good.
Because I want to go to this thing that you need about homes. Tonight at 8.
I'll be here all week. We don't need it till Sunday.
Everybody's going to pay. Well, like people get about 20 or 30 years. Why would you pay him?
For the to hand out.
We've already raised. We're paying already. Last year we raised it. We've already raised it because we're going to implement it whenever. Next year they raise it again. It's a good thing.
Which is the water machine.
Missing the cameraman.
I didn't think about it. I'd be willing to bet that. I didn't think about that. Something tells me someone's going to get even with something.
I think it's $1.25.
Well, I'm going to take 150 just in case. Are you ready? Yeah. I was going to get some water.
No, I can imagine. Because he got it. He said,
So was Marion. You've got a minute. Marion just went to get water.
that meeting was yeah, that was
You have a minute because Marion just went to get water.
That's something you could put up highlights, top 10 highlights.
I didn't realize this till today. I was just reading. This thing is so if we're going to review this, some of the dating establishments, the sports teams, so we're going to review
People that
we're going to really sit down and just spend. And my apologies for not letting you guys know because I just
someone saying they're talking the last 2 weeks, and that's what it was like. It was like 11 o'clock. It wasn't like time like that.
we'll get together.
It was before you should have been called. No, it takes a couple days to that's out.
She's going on vacation.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry.
John, we're going to pull that. We're going to pull it? Yeah. Just the water meter. Yeah. Water. Might as well read if we're going to review it.
Yeah, exactly.
We did have this one. Well, young lady, how are you? Establishments, breweries. Yeah, you know, like these things. Malt house, milk depot. What are you talking to? Where's your thing? Page 1.
Yeah. Just because it's easier than toddling back and forth.
Oh, you're a toddler, I see. Huh?
Not if I don't have to be.
All right, I'm going to call to order City Development and Planning. First item on the agenda is a resolution for the League of Women Voters, the Equal Pay Day Proclamation.
I'd be happy to move that.
Okay. Second?
I'd like a raise.
Favor?
To do it.
Are you ready?
Sorry, it's not part of the
And also a resolution celebrating Women's History Month.
I'll move it.
Okay, Ms. Porterfield, second by Ms. Brazo.
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Discussion of the Norwood Avenue name change. Mr. Riggi.
Yes, it's in your packet. Maybe you can't see it too well. There's a section of Norwood Ave right by the Little League between Michigan and Pennsylvania and Schuyler where they intersect. There's no homes on this street at all. There's no houses, so they won't be affected. And this coming year is the 60th anniversary when Schenectady won the Little League World Series. So I want to propose that we name this after Mike Maeda, who put in well over 40 years as a coach in Schenectady Little League. He brought them to three times to Williamsport, won once, finished second once, and finished third once. So he's legendary as far as Little League goes and with Williamsport. And I think this would be a good remembrance of Mike, a long-term remembrance, because he deserves it. He put his heart and soul into Schenectady Little League and helped a lot of kids, and quite a few of them went to minor league ball, and 3 or 4 went to major league ball. So I think it's something we can do. It will not affect any homes at all, so no one has to change your driver's licenses or credit cards or anything. There's no houses there at all, and there won't be. There's the tennis courts, and it's right where the point of Pennsylvania, Norwood, that's where it'll end, and that's where the homes start.
All right, discussion.
So the background of this gentleman again is what?
I'm sorry?
He was a Little League coach with Schenectady Little League?
Oh, yeah, for over 40 years.
Okay.
Ms. Braza?
I don't have any opposition to it, but are we slighting anyone who else, other people who worked really super hard for Little League? Are we better to maybe do something like, Little League Champion Street or something? I don't know, because I don't have any history in Little League. I just was always concerned about what about the person who worked 35 years or 25 years, or you know what I mean, that kind of thing. But I don't have that background, so.
Well, just in Schenectady, if you mention Little League, Mike Maeda's name is synonymous, right, Bill?
I played for him.
Yeah.
He was head
Mr.
and shoulders
Little League,
above
yeah.
the others.
Everybody?
I think he's deserving of it.
He was my mentor when I became a coach, and, the guy knows more about, especially Little League baseball. And as a matter of fact, Jimmy Barberi made a comment when he went to the minor league training camp with the Dodgers. They were teaching him things, and he said, I didn't have the heart to tell him that I learned this stuff at 12 years old. So Mike is a legend. There's no question about it. There was a book written about that team also, and Mike was also a big part of that book. So,
Mr. Erickson?
I guess the only thought I have, anytime someone's renaming something, I always wonder, well, the old name, what was that for? So was there a Bob Norwood who was a football champion who is now getting slighted, or
well, there's still
was
a
it
huge still a huge section of Norwood Avenue.
So
that's
it's
gonna
just
be
one
named
block.
Norwood Avenue. Yeah, it's a short block. It's
Okay.
quite a long street, Norwood.
Yeah, I want to make sure we're not slighting anyone by saying, hey, it's no longer named after you, we're going to name it after him now, so.
Excuse me, we need a public hearing or anything for that, or?
That's
I was
what
going to
mine.
just ask
So, yeah.
Mr. Poister and Mr. Coluccio, too, if there's any issues with this.
I have done a quick check. I haven't finalized it right now. I am thinking that a public hearing is not necessary. But if this gets out of committee and then it turns out to be that a public hearing is required, then I would just have the resolution calling for the public hearing.
Okay. And Mr. Coluccio, are there any issues from your
No, I
perspective?
haven't seen issues, certainly can make the change in the signage.
Okay, moved by Ms. Porterfield,
A second.
second by Ms. Parazzo, all in favor?
Aye.
And just quickly, just a target date, I'd like to have this happen is August 27th of this year. That'll be the exact date of the 60th anniversary when Schenectady won the Little League World Championship. And I think that'd be apropos. We're going to try to get, off Tony Bonhomme work, to get as many members of that team here. Maybe we can get Billy Connors up here from Florida, that's what I'm hoping.
So August 27th?
The 27th of August.
And you want that in the legislation so that commencing on
Yes.
such and such a
Yes.
date, it will be thereafter known as?
Yes.
That'd be fine.
Good.
Thank you.
Mr. Strichman, land bank vacancy.
Yes, when we created the land bank, we created staggered terms. There are 3-year terms for everybody, but the first year some were 1 year, some were 2 year. You have 2 appointments to the board. One of them, Richard Russo, his term is up right now, and so he's been on for 2 years. He's been a very active board member, paid at his own expense to go to Kalamazoo for the land bank. He goes to conferences throughout the state at his own expense. He's the treasurer of the board, and I'd just like to recommend having him reappointed for 3 years.
Any discussion? Okay, Ms. Porterfield moved it.
Second.
Second by Ms. Parazzo, all in favor?
Aye.
All right. And just number 5 is just an update. In fact, Mr. Putnam, you want to mention?
Sure.
That a bit?
Sure. So this would be following the series of economic strengths presentations that have been taking place as part of the City Council meetings. Dr. Martha Asselin, the interim president for Schenectady County Community College, has agreed to come in and do a presentation for us at our next council meeting, which will be on the 24th, talking about the economic impact SCCC has on the city and some of the new programs and development that they have going on.
All right. And Mr. Hoffman, Land Bank Annual Report.
Thank you.
You want to address this?
Everybody, I want to thank everyone on the council and otherwise for your continued support of the land bank. We have a written annual report that you can go through at your leisure. I'm just going to hit some of the high points and then have Steve add some things. But we did get started in 2013. We did obtain a house through a donation from one of the banks, along with $15,000, which was some good seed money to get us going. We've since sold that house on Strong Street, and we have a contract, and we've closed on a second house on Eastern Avenue. Land banks are really getting a lot of momentum in New York State, and there's 8 of them now, and there's talk about authorizing even more than the 10 that are authorized now. Steve and Rich Russo and I went to a conference of land banks in Syracuse last year, and the land banks are cooperating throughout the state, and so that no one has to reinvent the wheel, so we can all get as much out of this program as possible. And we've even created the New York State Land Bank Association, and we're working on some legislative reform, some things in the law that we'd like to tweak, and we're going to have some people in Albany try to move that through, some things to make it better, and some things that were a little different in New York than other land bank laws that weren't really recognized in the first instance. We did receive, or we're going to receive soon, I think, the $150,000 grant from the Attorney General. I'll let Steve talk about that grant and the upcoming second grant in a minute. We did our RFQ for legal services. We had hired an attorney to help us with the many legal aspects of the land bank. We're in the process of getting land bank specific software. That most of the land banks are using a specific software that cost $18,000. The good news is we got a $12,000 grant towards the purchase of it, so it's not costing us as much as some of the other land banks. Our projects on the table are exciting, we think. Metroplex in the city and the land bank are combining with an exciting project in the Eastern Avenue corridor. I hope most of you noticed it or read about it, but we have some plans there to take down several houses and perhaps do some sort of a tree farm or a nursery and create another entrance to Vale Park on Eastern Avenue. We talked to the neighbors there. We had a really successful neighborhood meeting with Eastern Avenue folks. We had about 20 people up at St. Clair's, now Ellis, and got real good reception from them. We're trying to get the folks in the neighborhoods to, to take some ownership of what we're doing, so that we got some eyes and ears on it when we're not there. So that's going very well. Amsterdam is starting to get moving. In 2013, they were a little stuck, but we did, beginning of this year, with they had several new council folks over there, and they have agreed to put $60,000 into the land bank over there. They have one property. They're going to start renovating that, hope to sell it, make some money. And some of the banks have offered us some more properties. ATF has offered us some more properties over in Amsterdam. And we have a real good Amsterdam contingent. The mayor is real enthusiastic about it, and our Amsterdam board members are very enthusiastic too. So we hope to make some headway in 2014 in Amsterdam as well. So I just wanted to leave you with the idea that everyone on the land bank board is enthusiastic. We've been, we think, doing all the right things, and we hope that 2014 and beyond makes the land bank very valuable for the revitalization of our neighborhoods. We're going to be reaching out to all the other neighborhoods in the city. We don't want any of the neighborhoods that feel slighted because we're working on Eastern Avenue, but we had to start somewhere, and we thought that was a really good project. And the Metroplex people agreed with us because of the mixture of residential and commercial there. But we're going to be with the Mount Pleasant folks. They contacted us this week, and let it be known to all the neighborhood associations that we're there, we're available to come speak and bring them up to date and to consider projects. So that's basically it. If you have any questions for me, I want Steve to just mention the Attorney General business a little bit. I'm happy to answer any questions.
So how many properties are in the land bank right now?
In our land bank right now?
For the Schenectady?
One.
How many have gone through the Schenectady land bank?
One.
Okay. So, I mean, for the record, I think this land bank is a really great tool for a municipality to use to, reutilize our infrastructure, our housing and things like that. I don't think we're using it well. I think we have this great tool and we just don't use it. I think that this land bank, if we're going to invest money on software, we're going to have administrators, we're going to have all these expenses to process one home, we should have 100 houses in here by now. And we go to ATF or we wait for banks to make some donations, but I think that's a slow way to go about it. I think as a council we need to consider other ways of feeding this land bank so that it's actually able to get some traction and make good. And we've been given this tool. I mean, the state of New York went through. It's from a state level, it was a big struggle to get everyone on board, rowing in the same direction. Now we've got it. It's passed, and we don't seem to be gung ho and full charging ahead and using it. I think that when we take our next set of houses through foreclosure, we seriously need to consider maneuvering and moving most of those houses into the land bank so they can actually utilize this valuable tool that we have. And I think that any more time we waste keeping one house in the land bank is, leaving your toolbox at home and going to fix something that's not going to get fixed right. So I think we need to consider a different approach in actually utilizing the land bank fully by moving a lot of these houses that we end up taking foreclosure right into the land bank. So.
Just a couple of points, Carl. It's almost a chicken and an egg thing. You need funds, as you all know, to do things. So we've been trying to generate funds without the county's donated funds, and the city has donated untold hours of your staff between John's office and Steve's time. And we feel that partnership is working very, very well. As a matter of fact, it's been 2 years, believe it or not, we have to renew that. And I know we've told folks at the county and the city that we have to sit down and renew our agreement. But going forward, we are excited about it. We do hope to get some significant money from the Attorney General going forward. But we do need funds in order to buy property and either turn it over and make a little profit on it or to demolish. And you're all familiar with that scenario. So I'm sure everyone's aware that we're here now, and we are going to continue to assist in any way we can so we don't duplicate efforts with the homes program or whatever else the city is doing. But we want to, we want everybody to know that we are here. And I know we're going to be asking for property after April 1st. We've got our eyes on a lot of stuff. And, as soon as we get sufficient funds, we're going to be rocking and rolling. So don't let the Attorney General.
Yeah, I was just going to say I couldn't agree with you more. Obviously, it's taken us to get to this point, and nobody's happy with just one property. And we do plan on asking for more this year. Again, you do have to have money to maintain them. And that was part of the initial agreement with the city was that we would hopefully be able to get some type of coverage from the city to manage them, maintain them, at least as we get up going. I believe the land bank is something that will be self-sufficient, and as more properties go in, the land bank will be able to maintain them, sell them, do more demolitions, and be positive for the city of Schenectady. So we should have our first round of funding from the Attorney General any day now. This is unfortunately administrative money. It allows us to hire some full-time people to manage the projects that we do have, start developing our 5-year plans, and they're not full-time staff. They will be people as needed as we start growing the program, developing our plans. So we're starting to budget out where their time will actually fit in. I met with the Special Assistant to the Attorney General last week. We are definitely prioritized for the next round of funding, which should be coming out June, July, August. And so I'm confident. I think we're actually in a very good position now that Albany is looking to get their own land bank, that we will probably receive more money than we would have otherwise received last year. So very confident about this upcoming round, and I know we'll be able to be more positive in Eastern Avenue, the north side, and all around the city as we do more demolitions, take more properties, and return more of the revenue that we are able to generate back into other demolitions and acquisitions.
And the beauty of the money from the Attorney General is that it's from settlements with foreclosing banks. It's not tax money. So, that's a good feeling to be using the money that's coming in the Attorney General for rehabilitation of houses and foreclosure issues, and not just moving money around, taxpayer money around. So that's going to be a real advantage. Yes.
How are you identifying the houses in the different neighborhoods? You said that you're meeting with Mount Pleasant to talk about it, and how are you doing that with all the neighborhoods?
Right now, we're looking primarily in Eastern Avenue. I mean, there's a lot of properties that we could take, and we don't have enough money, just like the city doesn't have enough money to demolish them all. So we're still, in Eastern Avenue would be some strategic acquisition of properties. Actually, I probably wouldn't mind getting most of the properties in the Eastern Avenue area so we can make a difference. We're preliminarily focusing along the main corridor where you'll see the biggest difference, make the biggest change to get more people interested in investing in the rest of the neighborhood. Around the rest of the city, we're just starting to look at that really strategically, what we want to get there. You really don't want to just be taking one here and one here. You want to have a focus, work with the neighborhood.
We want people to know that they can donate property to the land bank. There's economic benefit to that. A lot of people, there's a lot of older folks that are not in their homes anymore that might be in some sort of situation where they can donate the property instead of letting it sit there and need upkeep. So that's why we're meeting with the various neighborhood associations and others, just let them know what the land bank is and what we can do and how we can help a little differently than the other programs are used to.
You said we hired an attorney.
Yes.
And who would that be?
Who was it? It's Whiteman, Asselin, and Hannah. They do a lot of work with Metroplex as well, and they understand a lot of the programs we're starting to incorporate. So a lot of it's legwork on getting our programs up and running.
Any other questions or comments? Ms. Garza?
I just have a comment in the fact that I respect what Mr. Erickson said, but I also think that there's a lot of minutia and a lot of things that we had to go through, and it's just not about transferring properties into the land bank. So, I mean, maybe it's time for another presentation about how the land bank works and what steps we need to go through to make the land bank successful, so the council is clear on all of the steps we have to go through. Why we are where we are, why one property's come through, is it feasible to put 100 properties in there? It sounds like we need funding first. Do you know what I mean? So although it's a great tool, it's something we all talked about right from the beginning, it seems to me like we're going in forward steps and not necessarily not utilizing the tool, but yet going through a really involved process toward an end solution with forward motion. So I'd like to understand it better. I'm happy to have a private conversation with you, but I'm thinking maybe my colleagues would like a refresher on all of the steps that come up to making the land bank, feasible and funded and in working order and
We'd be
all
happy
those
to
things.
do that. If you just tell us when you want to do it on a committee night or a council night, and we'll be happy to have a PowerPoint presentation.
Okay, I'll
for you.
schedule it with the clerk's office.
Perfect.
Thanks.
Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Do you have any comments?
Repeat what I said. One house, 2 years.
I'm going to see if we can maybe put this in evening committee in 2 weeks. Next cycle. Okay, I've got one additional item that's not on your agenda. Mr. Winkler and I had a conversation today, and it's a situation we need to be aware of and start to think about how we're going to address. I don't expect us to make any decisions tonight, but Mr. Winkler, you want to?
This is kind of an opening discussion, as Peg said, on permits. It's the season where we're going to be getting an influx of permit requests for street closings and everything. We had a discussion, I believe, at a committee meeting once before where we talked about the cost. It's a $10 cost, which doesn't cover anything adequately. So I'd like to bring it back to the council for discussion, not necessarily tonight, but just introduce it to you, that I'd like to, maybe we could make a proposal to you to what we think that $10 should become to cover just our administration of the permit. And the issue also involves multiple days that a permit covers. I kind of think that we should have a charge per day, a daily fee, rather than one charge for 3 days, 4 days, or a whole season. And we've had that.
I'm confused. I thought we already passed legislation of, are we talking about street closure permits, like for the green market and stuff? That was $10 a day, or like $200 and $225 or something for alcohol. That was already passed, I thought.
That was 75.
Or 75, did we reduce it?
That was for alcohol.
Yeah, but $10 also for the green, for like, I don't want to single out the green market, but for like the green market, because it used to be that it was $10 for the entire season, and we changed it to $10 a day, right? Oh, we already voted on that.
I think we did it.
I thought we
I'm
did
pretty
too.
confident we did, because I drove it.
We talked, yeah, because it was actually made the newspaper a little bit too, because
Yeah.
people were in different opinions on how much we should charge and what situation. It was the alcohol, and then it was, I think it was a not-for-profit. We
Yeah.
talked about doing something different for not-for-profit
Yeah.
too. So
And there were hours, we talked about the hours of alcohol and all that.
Music.
I'm pretty sure we passed that.
I remember the $75, and I apologize, I'm not saying it didn't happen right
Yeah.
now, I'm just not up to speed on it.
I remember sitting across the
yeah.
table. Now, whether it made it to council the following week.
I even have on my to-do list to get in touch with Linda Sweet and make sure she's got a schedule of the new changes, because I know she's been out of work and she deals with that, so, I don't know, check into
We'll pull the
it.
resolution out and make sure. One of the things too that's come up, excuse me, is the extra costs that are associated with permitting that in the past we haven't really gone after. The cleanups and the police enforcement and that type of a thing, which we could have, but in the past we didn't. So, and they could be sizable to get a permit.
And Mr. Prowse, I mean, I think we also talked about, I mean, that was one of the things we talked about, that because some places will actually do their own security and cleanup, other places won't. And so I think as this form circulates around City Hall, the different departments, thought everyone was supposed to mark down what...
Right, and that's why we reduced it to $75, because not everybody needs the police or the barricades or whatever,
But
so
if they
that
do,
would
it
be ad
would be an
hoc.
adder. It would be an adder
Right.
onto whatever the costs were.
Yeah.
I thought that's how we saw
So
it.
we agree.
I would check that.
All in favor, aye.
I remember the conversation also,
Yeah.
but I didn't think it made it to the resolution. But I'll pull it out and we'll make sure, because there could be a sizable additional cost.
It's about the restaurants too, like the Cato Burns and Penhouse
Right.
was brought up, the whole thing.
Yeah.
I do remember vaguely reading about it.
If it didn't, it's not my committee, but if it didn't, can we get it on for Monday night for vote? I mean, we're all in agreement with the terms of it, as long as everybody reviews it. I mean, I think it did. I think we already
I thought it already went through.
voted on it, but for some reason we didn't, can we get it on for Monday to get it?
Yeah, if we can see what passed through committee.
Well, right,
and then
we want
send it
to
out
review
and-
it, but,
We'll pull the resolution out.
yeah,
And check it, send it to you.
yeah.
I don't believe there was two.
No, I think there was one.
Yeah. Because the other one was something about the parks.
Right,
You had
which
two
we
things, you
never
had two
went
things that were together. and you were talking
with.
about
We just
that.
decided no alcohol in the park at all, no matter
Right.
what.
Yeah.
Nobody could have alcohol in the park. I think it was less than was a nonprofit or something. I don't remember what that was.
Right. Yep. Yeah.
So we'll wait and see.
Yeah.
what we
I'll
find
get the
in it.
resolution out and we'll send it around again, just so everybody's fresh with it.
Yep.
I mean, I'm also thinking that with our conversation too, is, the $10 a day, whether that's realistic for, an organization that needs streets closed for 3 days and needs dumpsters removed and stuff like that.
It's $30.
Yeah, but the cost of overtime and, everything
Just
like
don't
that.
know.
Just,
Oh, right.
Administrative costs,
Right,
whatever.
that's separate,
Yeah.
right. That's the ad hoc charges that we
Yeah.
talked about.
so let's see what we've got and then, if
Yeah.
necessary, we'll put it back in committee.
Okay.
All right, if there's nothing else to come before city development and, one other thing. Those of you on the committee, I think, got copies of the minutes from our last committee meeting, and I just wanted to know if there were any additions or corrections.
No additions or corrections, but can I ask that all of the committee meeting notes get put together in one scan and sent out instead of having more and more paper all the time? We can print them out if needed. It's one sheet of paper, right? Because, I mean,
Yep. Oh, good point.
we'll have a committee note packet scanned and emailed out. Is that okay with everybody?
Yeah.
Yes. Definitely.
All right, then at this point, then I'll entertain a motion to
Table.
adjourn.
So moved.
Second, Ms. Porterfield, second by Ms. Parazo, all in favor?
Aye. Call government operations to order. Final review, Chapter 55 of the City Code, installation of water meters, Mr. Poister.
I would first note that just prior to this meeting commencing, Mr. Kozier had some preliminary discussions with me that were, I think, very justified. But basically, there are a number of phrases, terms, and so on in the code section which we are seeking to amend that deal with circumstances that no longer exist within the city. They were probably written 100 years ago. And initially, and I would note that Carl Olson is here, and I think everybody agrees that there should be a comprehensive review of the entire section that you are contemplating making changes to. And there was some discussion about the possibility of pulling it and having another public hearing and doing everything in one fell swoop. However, since then, Paul Fond has come into the room. I had a brief discussion with him, and he has a number of bids that he wants to, or bid packages that he wants to send out to get the meter program operational for the replacement of the meters. And given the timing, if we were to go another, it would be a minimum of 5 weeks, because we have a dark Monday, because there's a 5th Monday this month, and then 2 more cycles by the time you have a public hearing and so on. It would substantially delay the process for getting the meter program up and meter replacement program up and running. So if there's no major objection on the part of the council, I would like to proceed with the understanding that we can immediately turn around and start the process for making many of the changes that were raised with respect to the ancient language. And there is going to be a discussion later on in the agenda concerning the water lateral program. And it may very well be appropriate to address all those issues globally together. So, as I said, unless there's a objection, we would like to proceed with changing what is before you now, which, as was outlined previously, just adds the ability for the city to retain the services of a plumber or otherwise to assist with the installation of the approximately 1,500 water meters that we are contemplating switching out, so that we can start the new program so that they can all be read electronically without actually having to require human entrance into the premises to look at a meter. And this was on for a public hearing last week.
I apologize, but my packet did not scan properly, and I'm still having a hard time with it. It seems to me, and please remind me because I do forget sometimes, that last week or 2 weeks ago, we looked at these proposed changes in the first couple of pages, but the rates weren't included in our packet. Am I remembering that correctly? Does anybody remember? And are these rate changes residential, business-oriented, both?
These rates would be for those properties that are metered. And,
Okay. So that's residential?
No, there are no meters on residential.
Oh, it's flat rate, sorry.
This is,
What's a one-family non-residential unit look like?
well, that's what I'm saying. See, that's why some of this language in here just doesn't make sense.
So,
For one family not exceeding 10 person.
A lot of this stuff is, the wording is just not right.
That's the one family.
Right.
Madam Chair, can I just...
Yes, I'm sorry, Mr.
No, it's okay. And Paul, since we have it here, the 255-50, the second page says 1 meter not to exceed 1 inch in size. And you're talking, this is commercial. Commercial buildings don't have 1-inch meters.
That we would own.
I'm sorry? That we would own. See, and that's not clear to me. That's what I'm saying. This is... So if anything over 1 inch, the business or establishment is required to purchase their own meter then.
What we'd like to do is, right now, we don't own any of the meters in the city. They're all owned by the property owner.
Okay.
And what this would do is help us to take ownership of the meters, okay? And in our current code, we own, it started off as the 5/8 meters, and I would assume that was because there was 3/4 inch service going in, and the rule of thumb was, when in doubt, put the meter one size below the size of the service. Then we've moved to 1-inch services, and now we're giving out 3/4 inch meters. So I think what we're trying to do is just go to the 1-inch service and put all 3/4 inch meters where we can. But right now we have a mishmash of everything out there. And we're having a lot of trouble gaining entrance to a lot of these properties where we're not getting accurate readings. We're doing estimates, which causes a lot of people to come upstairs and not really appreciate their bill because we're doing estimates. And we do have the funding set aside for capital. We have to use that funding soon because it's already borrowed. And what we're trying to do is we are in the process of reading meters already for the August billing. We have to start approximately 4 to 5 months before to be ready because we're reading annually. In order to meet this deadline, so we don't have to read for the February 15th, let's try and get an RFP on the street so that we can get the prices in, whether it's a performance contract, and get this job done. It's a lot of work.
There's no intention of changing anyone. If you have a meter, we'll get another meter.
Right.
If you do not have a meter, you'll not get a meter. So it's just to replace the meters that are currently exist.
Okay, I have another question. Is there any circumstance where this would cause a business money to get the new city-owned meter? In changing, how they're hooked up or...
In the current city code, what I didn't change is it's up to the current property owner to maintain in good condition the valves connecting that meter. Okay, so if the contractor that's hired by the city goes in and those valves don't work, that property owner has to make that valve work. That's in the city code. That hasn't been changed. It's always been in the city code. And that goes back to even the service connection or the curb valve. That's supposed to be kept in view where we can gain access to it and ask in working condition. If those aren't in working condition, there may be a cost to the city or to that property owner because they didn't keep it in good working condition. And as for the rates, all we did was update the rates. What was adopted in the 2014 budget, that just reflects what was adopted. So we just carried that in because they were old numbers in there.
Yeah, so that's fine. I just didn't remember seeing it a couple weeks ago, so I want clarification. I just need to ask you one more question to make sure I understand. So in changing the code to a 1-inch size, if we go to a business that hasn't kept their meter in good working condition and they have a 3/4 inch size, do they have to incur the cost to change over to the 1-inch?
No, it says up to, I believe.
Okay.
So if there's an existing, I think this goes back towards the lateral program. If there's a 3/4 inch service there and it's of copper, not a leaded or a galvanized service, because those don't meet the state code, we would just replace the meter in kind with a 3/4. Okay. So we're not going to try and incur any additional costs to the property owner other than if they didn't keep the valve in working condition, because we have to be able to shut the water off to the property to replace the valve, and that's all.
Okay.
So,
yes, I'm sorry, Mr.
I'm sorry,
Poister.
that's okay. So percentage-wise, the meters that we're going to be ordering, are they going to be for apartment buildings? Or, I still cannot see how many commercial establishments are using 1-inch lines.
In everything. I used the old SEER report, so you may have to look at the language, John, but the meters that will be going in the city will be a replacement to every meter right now. Every meter that's currently in our unit system, whether it's a 5/8, whether it's a 6-inch, we have some pit meters at GE that are 8-inch, they're all going to be replaced.
And we're bearing the cost of that?
And we're bearing the cost.
Through a grant?
Through bonding that we bonded previous years. Because what we ran into the first time around we tried to do this is, without owning the meters, It's very difficult to get a property owner to send them a letter and say, you've got to change the meter to this standard with this radio read, and then confirm that when that meter's put in with the radio read signal on their building or in their basement, we're going to get a signal. So the best possible way to do this is for us to take ownership of all the meters, do a citywide metering program, and it all just falls into place.
Village of Scotia just got done doing the same exact thing.
The 4,600 meters.
Mr. Erickson, did you have a question?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I think we need to consider, as we're addressing this, and I think a lot of the residential, this first line here on the rates says one-family house. There's a big difference between different families. I live in a house, I have 4 people, I use a lot of water. My neighbor, one woman, lives in the same size house, pays probably the same water fee, and she probably uses very little amount of water. And so I think we should consider the opportunity of giving people the option of, if they live in if it's commercial or multifamily housing, you have 10 families or something like that, or 3 or 4, a little different. But for single-family houses, why wouldn't we give people the option of having metered if they feel they're using less, or a flat rate if that's the easiest way to do the billing? And even for metered, you could put a meter fee in there to pay, because meters are expensive and people may not want to put it on. I think there's ways we can do that to give people an option, because I think some people use a little amount of water,
especially seniors.
And some people, right, seniors, and then other people use a lot. And I think as time has gone on from generation to generation, most of the appliances in our house use less water. And so if 3/4 used to be fine, you would think we'd be able to switch to a smaller meter or smaller line going into the house versus a larger. When we're using less water, we should have smaller access. But I think we should consider meters for residential.
Am I correct that that's a separate issue from this, Mr. LaFond?
Yes.
It's something that the council may want to take up, but this is the commercial aspect of it?
You have 2 rate structures. You have the flat rate, which is based on fixtures, and you have your metered rate, which is based on the meters, obviously.
Right.
And if you look at that, and you start having people switch from flat to metered, it's going to change your overall revenue stream coming into the city. So by doing that, then you have to go back and adjust all your rates, because if you were to put everybody on a meter and you start just paying for what you use, your revenue may not meet your needs, so you may have to have a rate increase or a decrease on it. But I would strongly think that it's going to be a rate increase. So right now you know what's going on in the city, because you have a certain number of properties that are flat rolled, and we know what the revenue is on that flat roll through munis, and we know what the approximate usage is on a historical basis. So we set the meter rates based on that. If you start mixing, you're going to have to figure out over the next few years, if people keep changing, you're going to always be constantly juggling your rates because you don't know what's coming in anymore. And I agree, and we've talked about this in the past with regards to not stabilizing rates, but adjusting our rates, because a residential unit that has 5 bathrooms, they're paying per fixture. If there's an elderly couple there that don't use a lot of water, they're paying a higher rate. And we discussed this. There are different ways to do it. You can do it based on units. You know what you need for an operating budget, or you can do it based on you can look at number of bedrooms. Usually, typically, the number of bedrooms factors in the number of people living in a household, and you can adjust by that. But
the most equitable way would be to meter everyone. The cost associated with doing that is very high, and the useful life of the meter is probably 25 years.
20 years?
20 years at 25 years, you're not going to, the cost going to be excessive. So it's going to create a situation where people's rates are going to increase because of the meter.
So I have a couple things to say about that. I mean, I think that the total rates wouldn't go up because you're collecting the same amount of revenue. So my bill would go up, but Mr. Kosher's would go down, and so at the end of the day, we're collecting the same amount of money. It's not going to actually raise rates. It's going to raise rates for some and lower for others. The people who use more would go up, and then on the bill, the meter for the fee, you could put a $5 or $20. If you wanted to have a meter, you can choose to pay your $30 a year for the next so many years to pay for the meter charge, right?
Okay,
and so those are things that could be compensated in, but it will allow people who use less water to pay for less water, and people who use more water to to pay for more.
Right, which is, I think, something worth looking into. But am I correct, whomever I'm talking to about this,
Right.
that would be a tremendous cost to the city to purchase meters to outfit people's homes? For now. I mean, something that we should look at over the next year, or is this something actually we could talk about in a cycle?
I did a cost breakdown, I think 3 years ago or 4 years ago for the council to show that the cost of putting in meters was probably about $10 million to meter the whole city of Schenectady. With our cost to produce water, we would never get a return. I mean, you know, at the end of the life cycle, useful life cycle of those meters, 15 to 17 years of the battery life of those meters, you'd still be paying the debt, and you'd have to go to another meter.
So my proposal is not to actually borrow the money and do it. The homeowner, if they chose to go on the meter, could choose to go to the meter. Like I could say, I'll buy the meter, and I only use 2 gallons a year, so I'm going to save the money. I'm going to pay for the meter and do it. So.
And the money that we're collecting on the flat rate is not going to be there, so how do I make that up in my operating budget?
Well, the person using 2 trillion gallons a year is going to pay a little bit more.
But we don't know that. We don't have the historical data.
Unless they continue on its flat rate. You know what I mean?
The flat rate would go up.
I guess what I'm trying to get through here right now is this a conversation that we could have to vote on by the next cycle, or is this something we would need to study for 6 months to figure out? All I'm saying is, if we can entertain this notion to move on it in 2 weeks, I'm happy to continue this discussion. If not, I would love for Mr. Erickson to do a study with you and come back to the council with all the information. And
by the time I run for re-election, I'm sure we'll come back to council committee.
Right now,
An environmental vote.
on an annual basis right now, we're probably losing around $200,000 a year in lost revenue because our meters are so old and so inaccurate.
Right, but that's not what I'm asking you. What I'm asking you is feasibility of actually metering our residents right now. Is that something that would be as simple as us discussing tonight and passing through in the next voting cycle? Or is it something that we really would have to do some study on over a period of time? I'm not opposed to it, but is it a discussion we should be having tonight, is all I'm asking.
To me, it would be part of a budget discussion.
And I gave that to the council years ago.
I don't think they listen.
I gave you the numbers. I broke it all down, the cost of the project, the return. You'd never get to the return on your investment. You'd be buying meters over again before it was paid for.
People really be finding out what they're paying per gallon of water.
One question was asked to me. Obviously, if you have an outside faucet, you're only being charged for just these faucets up. There's no additional.
You're being charged for the footage.
That's it. Okay, so that answers that question. So back to the meters again. And again, I'm not going to have any problem moving. It's just for the sake that this is going to be commercial, that we certainly have to change over the meters. They're not working right now. We want to get them all read digitally so we can have our folks drive by the cars and get accurate readings. But back when I lived back in the city of Buffalo and I worked for the water department right out of high school, that was one of our tasks. We installed water meters in every single residential home in the city of Buffalo, and they did it by neighborhoods. So it was like a 7-year project that they undertook. But again, I don't know what the savings were. I don't know. But again, it was all the environmental piece. You know, we had homes that had toilets that were constantly leaking, you know, faucets that were constantly leaking. And that's why I love this idea with the apartment buildings, our complexes. I mean, we walk in these apartments all the time, and we just walk in, it sounds like waterfalls are running in there. And that's really where we'd be able to, conserve some water and some energy and get some savings to folks. But again, at the same time, I feel for our seniors. You're right, Mr. Maybe this is something we can explore.
Absolutely.
Be willing to sit down with Paul and Carl just to take a peek at it, and maybe even we do a section of the city at a time. Yeah, just do a little block and see, get a readback, get a feedback, what it would be, and how we could potentially save some money for our residents. But again, this is all commercial that we're talking about, and the rates, I guess, are in your budget, so those were really not discussable for the most part, I'm assuming, right? Because they are what you guys approved in the budget, so I have no problem. But I do want to work on this to amend this. If we can, John and Paul and Carl and Peggy, if you don't mind, if anybody else wants to sit in with me.
Can we amend the first line item here?
Well, it's going to take conversation.
For one
Absolutely.
time.
It's not going to happen right overnight. No. That's going to be a while. Work in progress. Yes.
Right, and that is my point. It's not, I'm absolutely, completely, totally open to exploring our options and even hearing from the public as to whether they might be interested in having their water metered. I'm not, but I'm not every family. I'm not a senior, I like to flush the toilet at will. I'm crazy that way.
Well,
And having subsidized.
There you go. But my point in this whole thing is that something we can actually wade through tonight, or can we get to the issue at hand and then go into a study and come back with some pros and cons of that and offering that to our city residents, which I think we're all open to hearing,
Yes.
right? Okay. Now, getting back to these changes, what do we have as far as any other questions with the changes that are proposed this evening? Anyone have any other questions regarding the changes proposed for this evening?
Again, to reiterate, this is for commercial metering only, nothing residential.
Yes, commercial metering only.
Okay, and I will move this, Ms. Krause, I believe I'm on this
Okay,
committee.
that's very good. Mr. Erickson, do you have a second?
I will second.
Okay, well, I will second it. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Correct? Is that proper procedure, Madam President? Okay, very good.
Thank you.
And I assume those interested will be working with Mr. LaFawn to bring information back to the council about residential rates and metering. Yes? Or not? Okay, on to the next thing. Network security update. I guess we have to have an executive session, Mr. Coluccio, because it's security related and sensitive, okay? So if there's nothing else to come before government operations for now, I will ask that for a motion to recess. Mr. Kosher, I need a second.
Second.
Mr. Erickson, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, call to order, Health and Recreation.
Do you want me to help you? I'm serious. Do you want me to be your voice?
Give her the microphone.
Okay, Mr. Riggi?
Somebody else.
Okay.
Do you want to chair today?
Yeah. Because I don't like to hear this.
Well, it hurts.
Setting rates for fee and golf course by resolution.
Yes.
For Poister.
This is one very similar to what's been done in the past, where we have various fees within the code. What we're trying to do is continue with substantive code changes, going through the normal process of requiring public hearing, et cetera, but for fees that can change because of a host of different factors, that you have the ability to change fees from time to time simply by passing a resolution. And that is what this proposed amendment does, is it allows you to set the fees for the golf course by resolution. And I would note that that will also make it such that if you decide that this class of golfer, you want to change the fee, or right now there's no fee or no addressing a particular class, and you want to say, okay, I want to give XYZ class the right to golf at a reduced rate, you can just by resolution add that to the list of fees. So what we're talking about now does not set the fees. All it does is give you the authority to set the fees by resolution.
So we're not discussing, oh, I'm sorry.
I know you're new.
Thank you. Yeah, I was looking at Marion and I forgot you took over there. So, so again, these proposed fees that they have listed here, we're not discussing these today.
You will be later on.
Oh, later on. That's what I thought.
We're here. You think we're here? We're up here.
Yes, I know.
Okay.
All right. So the fees are later.
The fees are later.
I will pass on my question.
Rates. Setting rates.
Any other discussion?
You are right, that's number 4, correct?
Yes.
I stand corrected.
That's fine.
That's why you are where you are.
Discussion?
I'm not on the committee.
I'll move this. Do we have to move this? Is it something we have to move?
And I'll second it. All in favor?
Aye. Okay.
City insured employees, Kathy Finch. Well-styled biometrics and rewards.
Well, the city has a program.
Kathy, do you want to come down this end that way for TV purposes?
Yes, exactly. So again, the city has a Well-Star Rewards program through MVP in conjunction with our health insurance for our current employees and retirees that are in both our MVP PPO program and MVP EPO program. There's a few things that people have to do in order to get the rewards, but they can get up to $300 a year back from MVP for actually participating in the program and doing everything that they need to do. We're having a screening this week that people can participate in. It costs them nothing to go to the screening. There's different items that are actually tested for in the screening. They ask about your tobacco use. They calculate your body mass index. They take your blood pressure. They do a little blood test for blood sugar, and they also calculate your cholesterol. And those are the factors that they look at to determine whether or not you're in good health. So this year, these screenings are actually going to be input into the MVP system. Last year, we had screenings, and people had to actually submit them to MVP. So it should go a little smoother this year. But we've not had the participation that we hoped for. We have about 3.1% of our people that are actually redeeming these $300, and that's in this past year. So we're hoping for better participation. So we just wanted to get the word out to everyone that's a city employee, a current city employee that has the health insurance plans, that they're eligible for this and that they should take advantage of this opportunity. Any questions?
Discussion?
Just, do you have other thoughts on how to get the word out, encouraging the employees?
Well, we've sent emails, we sent flyers through payroll flyers, which people throw away. That's my big beef.
Sure.
Do we have any information in terms of, by department, how many people are doing it versus not? Is it one department is participating, one department is not participating?
Yeah, we currently don't have that information. Of the people that are actually eligible to participate, if we look at just the subscribers, there's 830 people that are actually eligible to participate. The number who actually earned points towards redeeming their credits was 87. And the actual number of people that actually redeemed any credits were only 26.
Is the difference we're unhealthy?
No, I think that
Do they have to pay more?
I think that we're in an education process this year. I think we need to educate people more on how they actually need to do this whole process. But the reason that we're doing this is to try and keep our people healthy. So we want people to be screened and trying to lower health insurance costs. As you all know from budgeting, health insurance is a really expensive deal for the city.
I have a question.
Sure.
2 and 3. It says the assessment, enter the assessment online, and then you have to go back in and request the $300 check. Can we combine both together? Once you enter the information online, it triggers you getting a check.
Well, that's part of the MVP process, so it's not something that
can we request
change.
that so that make it easier for the employee? One step, two step.
We can try that, but they stated that people have to go in and actually redeem the points after they get them. So I can ask them to do it again, change it, but it's not something they're likely to change at this point. But maybe next year they'll do it for us.
Okay, I think it's good. Simplify it.
I think we should push each department head to get a participation for their employees underneath them to say, hey, your department has 82% participation, your department has 50%.
So a little competition.
A little competition to push them to do. Because if it's going to help, encourage healthy lifestyle and lower the premiums, then let's get it from management level down, right?
MVP has stated, and I put out in our little flyer, that anybody who participates in the screening that we're having on Thursday, they'll be eligible for a little drawing, and they give prizes away. So.
One more question.
Sure.
The employee enter the assessment if they are health risk.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have a program in place to refer them to?
Take them out back.
Do we have a program in place?
If there's a problem, it's kind of a self-referral. If you want, referrals, you can ask for them. There's also, if you're low in one area and you can't get all the points that you would normally get for that area, they have some training materials online that you can go into, little programs that you can listen to and stuff to help you. And once you participate in that little program, and it's just a little training session, you can get extra points for that. To try and get up to your maximum 300 points. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
For the Action Board, call for public hearing.
We've been discussing the Affirmative Action Advisory Board and asking people if they were interested in being a part of it. At this point, I really would like us to have a public hearing on the legislation. In your packet, there's two forms of the legislation. The one that Affirmative Action Manager has asked, she's made some changes to D, where we're lowering the number of people on the board. I'm suggesting that we keep the same number, which is 9, but we add E, which is a paragraph that talks a little bit more about what the membership is, and that every member should represent everyone and not just the group that they're representing. So essentially what would happen is we have on page 30 and 31, the legislation as it appears on page 30 would be the same, only adding E, which appears on page 31. So that's what I'd like to see move forward for the public hearing, for people to consider.
Just a discussion. So you would prefer 9 versus 7 or 7 versus 9?
9.
The original legislation was 9, to leave it at that, but to add E.
Is there a particular reason why 9 versus 7? I mean, there's a smaller board, is a little bit more quicker to react, easier to manage. 9 allows broader representation, right? So
It does. It allows broader representation. This is a board that has been dormant for quite some time, and I think it's a very important board. And as we all know, for the past 4 years, we've not been meeting our goals. We've been falling short. As a matter of fact, there's not been any increase in terms of the number of women and minorities that have been hired by the city. So I feel that this is a board that's extremely important, and we should move forward, and we should start with, we discussed this before, that if 9, we could not get 9, then we would go with 7, but we would shoot for the higher number of people, so that all groups are represented.
Right, I'm just concerned that, some boards, volunteer boards, you struggle to get a quorum, or even struggle to get enough people to serve. If we end up having to skip meetings because not enough people show up or something like that, is that a...
It's a big concern that's been brought to the table, and it's been based on a previous board, another board. I don't think we can necessarily take that information and put it with this board because it's not a board that's been active for so long. So rather than assume that's what's going to happen.
That happens in a lot of different boards. I mean, it's not just one, but all of them.
I don't know that to be an actual fact, but so I would prefer that we start with 9, and if we can't do that, then we can. I'll say, Ms. Brosby, something at you.
Is it possible, because of E, so I'm looking at D, which is saying that each person would represent this and each person would represent that under the 9 members. And then we have the addition of E, which I think is really, really good. Would it be possible, without calling for a public hearing and going through the whole motion beforehand, because it also has 3 additional members who are sensitive to problems, you know what I mean? So we could make sure everything in E is covered under those 3 additional members. To go forward with the legislation in place as it is, see if we can get 9 people that were interested. If we can't, and then we can still make the amendments, you know what I mean? But if we can't, then we can make 1 amendment that would bring it down to 7 and add E. I mean, just an option. I'm not opposed to any of this, but because of the 9 versus 7 thing, would it be possible to just plow forward now, try to find the 9 people, because you're going to a broad, everybody represents everybody anyway, and then if we couldn't find the 9 people, we could make all of the changes in one fell swoop down to 7 and add E.
So you're suggesting we don't include E, which includes everyone?
Well, right, but you have all the representations plus 3 additional members, so you could make sure everyone is included in the representation as it stands, just to see if you can get 9 people, and then you can make the legislative changes. But it wouldn't hinder you from going forward like right now. Then if you couldn't get 9, we could change it to 7 and add E. Otherwise, we would just add E. You know what I'm saying? I'm just trying to make this process more simple instead of going through the process of the public hearing and changing the legislation, then not being able to get 9, and then having to go through the process of the public hearing and changing the legislation again, just might shorten the...
Based on the feedback that I've gotten, I don't think we're going to have a problem getting 9.
This is another suggestion, too. If we just reworded D and say the board shall be composed of 7 to 9 members who are representative of the community, including women's interest, Hispanic interest, minority interest, without specifically stating 1 or 2 people for each of those categories, with that, it kind of gives then you the flexibility of without us having to go back and revisit it.
We could do that, but I think we should stick with if we should keep with 9 or 7 to 9, we could say 1 or 2 of
that's
this group, or 1 or 2 of the groups that would have 1 or 2. I'm not chairing right now, yes.
Question. In E, as I read through the first, are each of these groups protected class, or some of the commas in here, governments, and collective bargaining units? I was just surprised to see them on this list, I guess. Those people would be representative.
This particular language was put in there by the affirmative action manager. Okay. So we could ask her that and to see if it, and my understanding is she got it from the federal legislation.
Okay.
So I can ask her that, and if it's not needed, then we can, when we get ready to put it forth for Monday, we can make sure it's either there or not there. I can ask her that question.
And I think if I remember when she was speaking to this, she had included some of this because these are a lot of the issues the Affirmative Action Office deals with.
All the time.
So to get people who have some experience in some of these areas would be a plus.
Oh, that represent
people who are knowledgeable
about, but are they representing governance and representing collective bargaining units, or are they just knowledgeable? This is asking people to represent. Right? But that's broadly representative, right, of women, racial minorities, gay, lesbian, bisexual, disabled, veterans, and then, so I don't know if we...
That's a good question. We should ask that.
I'm not making but just wondering if that's who we want on here.
I don't necessarily want to delay things, but whatever you're going to be proposing, my office needs to put it together so that it's there for public hearing. And if you're going to be making those types of changes,
well, we can always make the change after the public hearing. I mean, it could be in the public hearing, and then based on public hearing, we can come back and say, well, there's changes to be made. The whole point is maybe making some changes after the public speaks, right? Letting them actually have input on the outcomes.
All the time.
Well, as I said, I look at that, but how much time do we have between now and the public hearing? We have time to do this and still get into your office. Is that not correct?
Well,
what would the date for a public hearing be?
The proposed legislation needs to be down to the clerk's office. We generally try to have it down there so that it can be viewed by anybody interested that wants to speak. We try to have it down there by the Wednesday before.
What's the date? Would the date be for the public hearing, Chad?
The next council meeting?
It wouldn't be
We're calling for the public hearing next Monday. Then the public hearing would be, what, 3 weeks? 3 weeks.
We've got a blank Monday coming up.
So you would need it this Wednesday, is that what you're saying?
We wouldn't need it for this part.
Okay.
We need it for when we're actually having the public hearing.
Okay.
Right.
Well, yeah, and that gives us enough time.
14.
But you know you're calling a public hearing for what you're going to want considered during the public hearing.
Yes, where we want this legislation considered. The only question that I understand that's coming is whether membership should be broadly represented and concerning governance and collective bargaining units, whether that's going to stay there or not. We should talk with...
And whether it's 9, 7, or 9 and 7, right? I mean,
we said
9 to 7.
7 to 9, and then 1 or 2 of those specific groups.
Yeah.
I have one more comment. During the presentation, it was also mentioned that the people making up the board would have to have a human resource background, which I didn't feel comfortable with. That doesn't say anything in this. That's not in this legislation anywhere. I don't see it, but I'm just checking.
It wouldn't be in the legislation. What Ms. Kajusti was talking about was procedures.
Right.
I'm not real sure where she got the procedures from, and I don't think we necessarily have to go exactly with that. We certainly can discuss what the procedures are and what people's
I just
backgrounds
want to
are.
make sure I wasn't overlooking something.
You're right.
Any other discussion? Okay, we're good. Discussion, municipal golf rates, Bill and Chris.
Would you move that? Don't we have to move that?
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'd like to move that.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, now.
The first thing I want to do, I don't know the standard policy, but I haven't run into this before, and that's what I was trying to speak with you about, John, was there's a little bit of a misleading in the setting rates and reviews by resolution on the first one. There is more in the backup that you provided to the public. So there are definitions, there are changes to what the tournament is, there's some definitions of student, there's definitions of junior.
Page 32.
Page 32, and we kind of glossed over those. And I was expecting a discussion on those, or if this is what you've already reviewed and are fine with, then that's fine. I just want to make sure that we're settled with that.
Whose committee is this again? Ours. I'm all confused. The only question I've got is, what's our regular rate for the residents? You have veteran senior. Is that a typo? We have 4 veteran seniors on all over the place there?
Resident.
Yeah, because what's our regular resident rate? Just for a regular resident who's not a veteran or a senior?
A resident/student. That's at the very top.
So a resident
and a student are the same rate, so instead of putting it in twice.
Oh, I thought it was a student who's a resident
No,
in the
it's a
city,
resident
as opposed to a student who's not a resident
No,
in the
that's supposed to be
city.
or, so I can change it to say resident or student. That's the first 4. The rates were redundant in the old way we did it, so I just kind of put it in like that.
So it's $14 for a regular and then 20 for 18 holes for a regular resident.
22 on the weekend.
Well, that can't be right then. Yeah, it is, okay.
The card fees say that it was removed. Are we saying that we're not going to charge for cards?
No, if you see below, that's the
Kind of hard to read.
I thought it was my glasses. Oh, I'm sorry, my version.
It's really fuzzy.
Oh, you got a good one there.
I didn't know that came through like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. No, what we're doing is, as it stands right now, the riding carts, there are 2 riders, 2 riders, 1 rider, 1 rider. But what that means is that when we have larger events and leagues and Matt, I mean, you can speak of it if you have any really specific questions, but what happens is we end up having the pro shop staff kind of holding a ledger in their head because the program isn't set up that way to just do, if I wanted to ride with Carl and I show up first, I pay. Well, then they have an outstanding balance for that 2 person. So what this is more in line. If you go through the backup, you'll see that most golf courses don't do it the way we've traditionally done it. They do it on a per rider. So now, if I show up and I'm going to be riding with Carl, I show up 1 rider, 9 holes, I pay. Carl shows up, 1 rider, 9 holes, he pays.
It's very hard to police.
I like it better when you pay.
For instance, when we have league play at night, we have usually 100 golfers. And of course, of an evening on both nights playing golf. So if somebody comes up, Carl, you come up and say, I'm going to ride with such and such. I don't even know who my partner is, but I know that he's going to want to ride. But you only pay for 1 person. Right. That can get lost in the shuffle somewhere down the road.
Yeah.
So this way, we're just like, okay, 1 fee. You don't have to worry about doing all that back work to chase somebody down over $1.
Now, what if I ride on loan?
That's what the fee is going to be.
It's the same thing.
Regardless.
So if we ride together, we each pay $9 for a total of 18. If I ride alone, I pay 18.
Same price.
I only pay 9. So then, are you going to have 4 guys playing golf with 4 golf carts?
No. We would never allow that to happen.
Just make sure, right?
Yeah.
Because he may not want to ride with me the second time we play golf,
Yes.
What's been going around?
On the subcategory, you have veteran, senior. Can you add from disabled? Is that something that we can do?
It was brought up. It was brought up several times. It was brought up over a year ago when we brought this issue up before, and it's the implementation of it is not the problem. The definition of it and how we go about doing it. That's what we need to settle on. It's just, we don't want to put undue burden. I believe that's what we talked about before, on making Matt and his staff the judge and jury of what disabled is, what we're going to classify that as. However, if we come up with a group decision on what disabled is, to say that we can't put a rate structure in place, it's all feasible, of course, but we've always been waiting on that definition. We've been talking about what is it. I'm unfamiliar with what the terms of the different disabled, disabilities are. Or is it disabled? Is it a disability that helps you play golf, or is it just a general disability?
Any courses doing that?
Can we define something?
I haven't heard of, but I think it's a good idea.
If you go through the back,
that would be an added feature. Absolutely.
I thought what Jason brought up Monday, if you have a Medicare card, obviously you're not a senior, you're on disability, Medicare disability. Can't that be a guideline?
I'm unfamiliar with the Medicare card. So, if that's something that we want to entertain, I'll take the recommendation and go forward with what I'm...
Where the definitional problems come in, you've got somebody who is disabled because of a psychiatric condition, that they have a problem working where there are a lot of people around. But yet they can be an excellent athlete now. And I can tell you, in my private practice, I represented a couple of people like that, and I got them on one form of disability or another. And now, is that a person that you want to give a reduced rate to? That's a judgment call. I'm not saying you should or you shouldn't. If you've got somebody who is in a wheelchair and they need various accommodations which are going to cost the city money to put in place, do you want to give that person a reduced rate? I don't know. I'm just saying you have an obligation to provide accommodations if that will allow the person to play golf, but do you want to give them a reduced rate? These, where's the definition? How are you going to put it into play? And that is, so far, I have not seen anything where, and I don't know if the committee or the group that has been working on this has seen any definition that would allow the people that are out there on a daily basis to say, you need it, you don't. And that's where you're going to, and they should not be put into that position. If you've got somebody who's a vet, that's yes or no. If you've got somebody who is over 65 or 60, that's yes or no. There's no argument. If you've got somebody who's a student, they've got a student ID, they're a student. Okay, so it's a where do you draw the line?
I guess what you want to do you want to define a physical disability, a mental disability? I think disabled is disabled. That's the way I look at it.
But there are people that are out there that are disabled who have nothing from any governmental entity that says they have a disability.
Right. Ms. Corbett, can you check to see if there's any with PGA or maybe just to see if there's any courses, New York State or whatever, that are any offering this discounted rate for the disabled? And well, of course, what is their protocol? What are their guidelines to label, to allow this individual to play? If you can look into that, maybe it's not out there. If it is, you can notify us and let us know if you can do that.
The only one that I know for sure of is there's a Blind Golfers Association that kind of travels from course to course, and they usually get discounted rates. Of course, I've been at the past they have.
Yeah.
That's the only one that I know. I can read about.
Yeah, because wheelchair stuff, like I said, you can't put the wheelchair on the course. You got to have the pass and everything. I don't know.
They make special wheelchairs for that, actually.
Yes.
What I can throw out is because you are now allowing changes by resolution.
Right, we didn't do anything.
You could pass this Monday night, and still the following cycle pass another resolution to address the issue of disability.
Yeah, I'll look into that. Start doing that.
That would make sense, right? Madam Chair, one other question? Oh, go ahead. I'll refer to the mayor there.
I want to direct you to the definition of resident. in the past, we've used the words to allow businesses that have their business establishment in the city to play as a resident. It's been changed now to be, you have to live in the city. So I want to bring it to your attention, because up until right now, we've done that and allowed a business, but there are problems with allowing the business. Who do you allow? Is it the business owner, the foreman, so, but I want to bring that to your attention, because in the past, there are people that have played as a resident because they had a business that was in the city. So right now, the definition is you have to live in the city. But if you want to make an exception so that we could allow people with businesses in the city, obviously you can do that. But the way it's written right now, it's not that way. That you have to live in the city, which is a change from what we've done.
And yes, one more. And the second page here with the lesson rates. We're talking about those. So are these 2014, are most of these, with the exception of the very first one, are these additional ones all brand new that we've never done before?
Some of them are.
Because all I see the same is from 2013 is the adult 40-minute set lesson. So all these are brand new then, correct?
Last year, we agreed upon one structure.
Right.
Matt and his assistant, they got into doing group lessons. However, they added it by 3, L40, and things like that. And we were trying to work a structure to see if it would work to mimic what Matt had been doing in the past.
Okay.
And as he was working with these groups, he kind of took a market demand and saw what the demand was out there, but we didn't have the structure in place. The lessons that Matt does now, as opposed to the previous pro, they are on, his paycheck. The city does get a share, as it shows. So it was complicated to make these lessons different. So we wanted to just take it out and put it, because we were kind of confined too much to this box that we had.
Oh, okay.
So this is to kind of expand on that, because what was happening was, Matt was giving a lot of lessons, and we had to hold him to this share. And this is just to kind of make it so if he does want to give, as you see, a junior golfer a lesson, the share is maybe $5 now, because the fee is less, because we're trying to encourage junior golf.
So we came up with these city share fees. These are all the golf committee did, or something to that effect?
Yep.
And obviously, so this is all, and again, I'm new here, so this is all part of your contract, I'm assuming?
Yep.
That the fees go to the pro, correct?
Fees, and then whatever you'll see goes to the city. A percentage of that goes back to the city for...
Okay. And do we have any idea what our fees were that we brought in like the last couple of years? I mean, I know maybe somebody could just email me that, just to see.
Lessons?
Yeah, in 2012 and 2013, just to, and
Well, we
just
can
to get an
only go with
idea.
what Matt did, because lessons previously were private. But
Yeah, Deb's good.
Okay.
We can give you the activity of lessons on, from the T-Way system, which is a point of sale system that was used during 2013. And I believe there is an actual line in the budget that we used in prior years that will give you lessons, but that will only show you the share that the city got, because the relationship with the previous pro was different. So
Yeah, I don't know if you
you'll
got
have that
it.
information, but may not be apples and apples.
Ryan's? Right.
Okay, very good. Very good. Thank you.
Yes. Mr. Erickson just pointed out the second paragraph of the golf committee's suggestion, but that wasn't all of the reason behind wanting to align our fees a little more fairly with our other city golf course. Part of that was a significant, and I believe it tripled their water rate in their water bill this year, and that was something decided by my colleagues that I, as a person steeped in the business world for a long time, was really uncomfortable with. And I still would like to see us, and I know Mr. Erickson concurs for different reasons, but I would still like to see us get a little bit closer on our weekday and weekend 18-hole rates. Everything else, non-resident, looks good. We're right on par. Ha-ha! Did you see what I did there? I would like to see a little movement toward, it doesn't have to align perfectly with stadiums, weekday and weekend 18-hole rates, but a couple of dollars increase or a few dollars increase, I really think would be fair in this case when we're tripling costs of business to one of our local businesses that does the same thing that we're doing.
And I agree. I mean, in the letter that's written here, it says that if the other golf course feels they're not getting their share of non-Schenectady residents because of lower greens fees, they should just lower their rates. I think it's kind of funny. Just lower your rates. You'll get more customers. I mean, it's an unfair competition between two golf courses. One that doesn't pay for water and doesn't pay taxes. We just went through claims this past year where we had to lower their assessed value because their business is worth less because they make less money, and big organizations are assessed based on their revenues minus expenses and on their business model more or less than on the commercial sale price of their land. And so we are, by competing against them, we're kind of hurting ourselves because we're taking a local business and making it worth less money, in which case they're going to end up paying less taxes in the long run. So I don't think we should be in the business of competing against city businesses. And what we're doing is we are subsidizing non-residents to play golf. The market rate is the market rate. We are saying, hey, if you live someplace else, come here, we will subsidize you. We will take the hit on our property taxes so that we can give you a lower rate to play golf. And so I think that we need to be market rate on non-residents. I think doing that is unfair to other businesses. And so I can't be in favor of any changes unless we are, like Lisa said, it doesn't have to be exactly, but it has to be in the same realm. It has to be around market rates. So,
just for clarity, I believe that the golf course does pay water rate to the city. I think full water rate, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
Yeah, so they do.
Right.
Our golf course does pay.
Oh, they pay right.
The golf fund.
Transferred in.
Yes, transferred into the water fund. Right. Yeah, just for clarity.
But property taxes.
So the only change that I would like to propose, and I'd like to hear my colleagues' comments on it, would be to the weekday and weekend non-resident 18-hole rates. And I'm proposing that weekday we raise it to either $28 or $29, and weekend we raise it to $30 or $31. We're still underneath Stadium and what their rates are by a couple of dollars. So I'd just like to bridge that gap a little bit more. I'm good with everything else, non-residents only.
Weekday and weekends.
Can I just point out one thing? We, as it states in the letter, we are increasing across the board $1. The reason for this is that we're at the beginning stages, the preliminary stages for implementing our design improvements to the course itself. When the design improvements, we have an estimate. When we see how that is going to go forward and we know what's ahead of us, there is a chance to revisit this again. This is kind of a breaking in for the future because we're going to be making improvements. One thing that Matt and I and the golf course committee have talked about is you pair the increase in the rates with the future of the course. So we're going to be doing design improvements to the course. The golfers are going to see a visible improvement. So we're going to say that that's valued at us right now at $1 more a year because we're investing in the future. And I don't like the name Stadium's been thrown around, and I've played Stadium, and I've been there for years. However, what we're not comparing necessarily is apples to apples, as where Stadium built a $1 million maintenance facility. They built a $2 million clubhouse. They built a $500,000 range. If we are to invest in our clubhouse and invest in our facilities and invest in the course, I have no problem taking these rates and raising them to accommodate what the private courses are. But we are not apples to apples. We are grass, we are golf courses. But aside from that, we are not competing with them at banquet facilities. We do not intend right now to compete with them at banquet facilities. We do not have similar facilities in any region. When you go, they have different facilities. They've invested in those facilities, but they have to pay for them. So it's just right now, we see what we have in front of us, which is these improvements. And our rates will be affected by the improvements that we make, because we're not trying to hurt the general fund, the general population. We're not trying to ask the city of Schenectady to pay for these improvements, but we're trying to do it at a measured rate. So, I mean, I won't, stand in the way of any kind of changes that we'd like to make, but I don't think it's prudent at this time to go forward. I think it's a great point, but I think we have a lot of growing to do, and I don't know where this gives us room in the future. It might be great. I don't know if this gives us room in the future to grow, though, with the rates, because I don't know if we're going to be able to go higher than that as a muni course.
I understand that, and I respect what you're saying, and I think on every other rate, I'm right there with you. But what happened was, we, in an effort to be a good landlord and be, less competitive with our own apples to orange business, gave Stadium for many, many years a water rate deal. That tripled recently. So where we could, whatever, I'm just saying, I think we need to level the playing field on that particular thing. Still a number of dollars, less money. Still, we're talking about a $2 to $3 increase as opposed to a $1 increase. So I'm not saying tack $10 on to everything. I respect what you're saying. I still think, our non-resident, every other thing, we're talking about 2 rates, 18 holes, which are really off from the 9 holes. You know what I mean? So I'm going to push back on this one because I really feel strongly about it. I do think there's still room to grow there.
And I hate to put others on the spot, but I mean, just, we're talking with, we have the director of water here, and one of the things that I would just think of is that if my costs are going up and their rates are going up, I mean, can we hold them to this rate and hold them to doing this, buying their water from us so we can continue this? Or is there a chance that in 2 years they look to invest in wells, or they look to take away from the city water, where next thing you know, now they're not buying that water from us, our bills have gone down, and they have a resource, and now we have a course that's more money.
Well, we change rates by resolution, so we can adjust that quite easily if that comes up in the future. We can look at that.
Okay.
I'm just one voice, so I don't know about the rest of the council, but that's how I feel.
I just had a couple things. 75% of our golfers are non-residents, which is a fairly high percentage. In order for us to benefit the stadium with rate adjustments, we're going to take those adjustments away from our revenue. That's the only way it can work. And we've got 75% of our customers are going to be affected by that. Whether they'll leave the community to go to the stadium, I don't know. But the only way stadium benefits is if they do leave, and we are out the money. So I think fairness has to be to the residents who've been at, the non-residents who've been at Muni for years and years. That's my 2 cents.
Other discussion?
I'll add my 2 cents as well. I mean, we have the Golf Course Advisory Committee, which I think has made this recommendation, and I really think as a council that is what they're tasked to do. I think they've done a good job. I'm sure they've done their homework. The golf course has always been in the green. Another pun. How do you like that? As far as I know, am I correct? I mean, we're not losing money on the golf course. There certainly have been made substantial improvements with the paths and everything, the cart paths. I think they're doing a great job. And again, I think maybe this is something we talk about at budget time with them. Bring the committee, bring whoever the chair is, Donnie Cloud, bring them in here and talk about those concerns at that time. But I think they've got their budget together. We have our budget together. And I just think that's what the purpose of the advisory committee is, to use them and go forth with their recommendation. That's, again, just my thoughts.
And we did talk about it, I think, at budget time or 6 months ago, and they said, hey, let's talk about it later. So then if we go back to budget time, it's like the circle. So I think we should talk about it now. I think we should just make a decision of whether we want to raise it a little bit more or not, right? We have 7 of us. I know we won't be in a deadlock unless somebody abstains. So let's just let her rip, see where it goes. I mean, I think it should be bumped up a little bit. I'm not concerned with the exact amount. I just think that we shouldn't be hurting our businesses so that we can provide town members with cheap golf. So,
Ms. King?
I agree with Mr. Kosher. I think, again, we've got this advisory board, and, they have given us their recommendation, so my inclination is to go with that. I'm also concerned that if we raise the rates, right now, my understanding is these rates are pretty comparable to other public golf courses. So if we raise the rates here, and we're dealing with 75% of the golfers are from out of the city, are they not very apt to then go to other municipal golf courses that are less expensive?
Aren't they currently going to their own municipal golf course?
I don't
We have a
know,
better
but
course.
this may be the reason,
Right, so.
this may be a reason that they would.
So, hence the revenue.
Do you think $1 would really drive them away, though? Because we're only talking about $2 to $3, so even if we raised it another $1, I'm not sure that would push it there.
I think it's league play, right? So,
What's that?
is the league going to up and move? Is there enough room at other golf courses for an entire league to relocate? Probably not. I don't know, but I'm not the expert.
We're only talking about 18 holes?
Yes.
Just the 18-hole non-resident rates, not the 9-hole rates. They're
Right, so the
fine the
leagues
way
wouldn't
they
be
are.
affected then. Or you can ask
that's
about
fine.
that.
We're on par on the 9. Sorry. We're equal. We're on equal footing in the 9
No, it's
holes.
not impacting league, right?
And I respect Mr. Kosher and Ms. King, but the advisory committee had no idea about their water rate increase. And that was devastating to that business. I mean, we're talking $40,000 increase in their operating costs. And I think we owe it to them to get a little bit closer as another city business that invests in our business and helps the infrastructure and pays taxes in our city and everything else. So that's my 2 cents.
We're talking about all the 18-hole resident, non-resident?
No.
Just
non-resident.
Non-resident.
We're talking about adding $2
$2
to the non-resident 18-hole fees for weekday and weekend. So it would be 28 instead of 26, where stadium is 30 and their card is more expensive. And it would be 30 instead of 28, where stadium is still 34 and their card is more expensive.
But you got to look at, you're doing a business here, you have to be competitive and attract people to come here. And that's what you have to look at.
We're still cheaper.
$2, yeah, it's cheaper, but then you look at the course at the back here.
And our beer and hot dogs are probably cheaper too. I'm just.
They're charging, which is this one here? This is,
Where is that course?
Yes.
Oh, that's the Van Patten Golf Course in Clifton Park? That's a private course.
Private course, and they're charging $30 for 18 holes. And we're charging $30
You want to charge 30.
on weekends, so we're harder.
But that's Monday.
Do we want to be attractive? So
They're
bring people into the
They're charging 40.
On the weekend.
They're charging 40.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
We're talking about the weekend. So
So we're 25% cheaper.
let's find out who's willing
We're
to.
municipality,
We're talking about $2.
It's supposed to be cheaper.
$2 to each.
Not private sector.
This is our investment. Not
Who's comfortable with the $2 increase on?
It's $3, we're already raising it.
So.
$2 increase to the proposed 2014 rates.
So a $2 increase to the rates they're proposed. Who's comfortable with
So is
raising
that-
it $2?
But it is $3, like
Yes,
Mr. English said.
two additional dollars.
So that would be 27 and 29?
28,
28 and 30.
30.
Okay.
So I
$2 on top of that.
Yes.
Right. So, Ms. Barrazo,
No, I'm against that.
I know that you would. I know that you would. And Mr. Erickson says yes. Anyone else is comfortable with raising the rate? Not $2?
I'd go for half.
Oh, so,
Another $1.
okay.
Oh, we got $1 over here.
Okay. How about-
I'm thinking about the same thing. I mean, we should not be, $2.
So would you be
You can
comfortable?
always revisit the rate next year, budget time, and maybe add another $1.50 or
We're
two.
always talking about meters next time.
Okay, would you be comfortable raising it $1?
Yes,
How many people would be comfortable raising it $1?
or zero. $1 or zero.
$10? At
Okay.
1-0?
0 to
$1. We're here talking about $1. Who is comfortable with raising the rate $1 over above the fee that it is currently? So overall, raising it
If
$2.
there's no support for 2, we'll support 1, I guess.
Well,
whatever
Mr.
we can get, I think it should be that.
Okay, I know that Mr. Riggi says he's comfortable with $1. Are you there? Mr. Brazo?
Sure.
I'm comfortable raising it $1.
So that's going to be 27?
27 and 29.
So on those 4 categories, right? Weekday, weekend, for non-residents, for all, right? All the 18s for...
Yeah, weekday, weekend, non-resident 18 holes.
Okay.
So it's just 2 lines.
Oh, not the veteran
Yes.
senior, okay.
No.
Oh, no, we're not.
Just the weekday, weekend,
Don't touch that,
non-resident.
man.
Okay, so.
We already did.
I just
Already
wanted to
did.
ask, we are going to leave the veteran senior for 18 the
Yes.
same?
Yeah.
It's just those two.
Just those?
Just
Because
those two.
we have been going with a discrepancy that's the same, a difference that's the same all along. So that'll be a little bit different.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just those two.
Just those
Okay.
two lines.
So, I need someone to move this. Is that, this is just discussion. We're not,
Oh, is this being
Sorry for
moved?
discussion?
if this is all for discussion.
Or we want to move it,
You
right?
ready to move forward
Well,
with this? Well,
you should really have some rates in place.
okay.
Yeah, because you're starting the leagues and everything.
Soon.
Okay.
Now.
So move it, right?
Yeah.
So I'll entertain a motion. I need a second.
Ed, you gonna second it?
I'll second. All in favor? Aye.
Thank you. Very good.
Thank you.
Motion to adjourn.
I'll move that.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Call to order public safety, final review, prohibiting the sale of single cigarettes. What's the call to it?
Yes. This was discussed at the last committee meeting, and there was a public hearing last week. There were, I think it was 3 people that spoke, I'm not sure, but there were a few people that spoke.
Four. Chris,
Four, okay. And at this point, it's up to the council as to whether or not you're going to move forward prohibiting the sale of single cigarettes.
Any
Who's the chair?
comment?
Yes, I do. Jen, thank you. I am certainly for this. As the mayor told us on several occasions, it's just, he's met with some of the store owners individually and cooperatively, and they've really talked about the folks hanging in front of the building and coming into the stores, and one of the number one issues they've had is really these selling these loosies. To me, the more eyes that we have on the problem, I think the better off we are. Are we going to send our officers in there just to go look for loosies? Probably not, but at least they will have another reason to walk into those stores. I do know the county is doing undercover work with the sale of illegal cigarettes to minors, because I know a couple of kids that are actually doing it, and one of our stores in the city actually just had their lottery license taken away because it was the 4th time that they had caught this store, and neither time did they pay the fines, and so they've lost their license to sell lottery. That is really the ultimate. When you can't sell lottery tickets, my goodness, you're in trouble. So I know the county is doing that. Initiative is still going on right now throughout Schenectady County. So they are certainly working on that. But I think the loosies thing is a real issue. And again, not just in the stores in Hamilton Hill, Mount Pleasant, but throughout the entire city. We see them up in the Van Branken area. We see them certainly in the Mount Pleasant area, on State Street as we drive down Central Street area. Quite honestly, I don't know why they're selling. I mean, it's illegal. It's a federal law, state law violation already. Why these folks are getting away with it, I don't know. But I think this is just another tool that the city police department can utilize by going in there and really enforcing this. And I think it's a good piece of legislation for us to move forward on.
My question is about, one of the speakers talked about that the county is doing this, and I want to, talk about how we're working with the county on that. What is the collaborative piece of this with, if the county's already doing things, I mean, we should be working together. Mm-hmm. And so how is that part of this legislation? How are we implementing that? I don't know who could answer that question.
Well, I'm not really sure, with this particular piece of legislation, I think you're talking about 2 issues. One being procedural means of enforcing things, and the other one being is such and such, and the substantive situation is, should the sale of loose cigarettes be prohibited by city code? It already is, as was stated, by federal and state, and what this does is it allows the city authorities to commence proceedings as a result of this, and for it to be prosecuted within city court. Whether or not the county wants to participate in enforcing that, it can. And we may have, if there are already kids out there making sales to underage people.
Minors, yep.
At the same time, if, just have them go in and say, can I buy a cigarette? And it's my understanding the going rate's $1. So they walk in.
50 cents. I was told it's 50 cents.
Okay, I was
All right,
told-
let's 75.
So,
Well, whatever it is.
That's a good idea, yeah.
If they went to buy one and they're sold now, you've got underage sale and you've got this.
But I'm not saying, that my question is not whether we should do this or not. My question is, how do we do it in conjunction with the county? What the county is already doing, so that we, if the county...
That's an administrative proceeding, which I don't know what actions there have been taken between the city and the county. I don't know right now. That's not a legal question.
Right.
And, so it's I'm sure that the mayor is more than willing to work with anybody, whether it's city, county, or state, or even federal authorities, to clean up any and all problems that can be addressed within the city. So I'm sure that he will be looking at any and all options available.
Ms. Porterfield, if you may, I can actually give a call tomorrow to our public health department, because the operation is being run through a grant, so I'm not so sure if the grant is confined to the purchasing of illegal cigarettes as far as packages, or can it be, or is it to include the Lucy? So if you don't mind, I certainly know who's in charge of the whole program, and I could certainly get back to the entire council and the mayor after a phone call. It's a simple phone call tomorrow, and I know it's public information, so it's not going to be a big deal to find that out. But I do agree with you, Mary. Why are we partnering with them? Why are we doing the same stings? A sting is a sting is a sting, right?
And otherwise, not that people shouldn't be, it's against the law, we were clear on that.
Mm-hmm.
So if the county's going and doing this, and the city's going, we should just get together on it.
Yeah,
I agree with that. We should partnership with the county and make it easy for across the board.
The two stinkers be waiting in line right behind each other.
That's how it works.
Yeah, my concern, I guess, is, I don't know, our police department can't enforce federal or state laws that are already there?
It's very difficult if you're dealing with a state law. Yes, they can, but this will also expand the enforcement to code people. So when there are code sweeps going on, they'll be able to address the issue.
Right.
And that is something that doesn't happen now. And so the federal, there's on certain things, yes, the police department clearly works with the federal people, but on something like this, I really suspect that the U.S. Attorney's Office would most likely not want to get involved with loose cigarette sales.
So this is. Go ahead. So this is a codes. This is a city codes violation.
Yes.
Okay. Not a.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Go ahead, Ms. Porterfield.
So I don't think we've kind of heard that before, that it was always talked about the police. So code enforcement goes in, or send someone in and they violate the code, then what becomes the process? Is it the same as...
They would issue a concurrence ticket?
Just like they do with any other code violation?
Yeah, so the police aren't going to be doing this. I don't think, it doesn't sound like there's any intention. The police aren't going around issuing codes violations currently. I don't think they're going to do this one, right? So this is something that I would assume would be fully enforced.
Code enforcement.
Like code enforcement?
Well, that's not the way it was
It would
explained.
it would expand their ability
to cite them.
Right.
That's not, it was explained that the police would be doing it before then, so now to hear the code enforcement is doing it.
I think that was my understanding.
Yes,
But the
it
police
was said.
department will be enforcing.
It was said.
Both.
Both?
Both
We're going to have the police department
enforcement.
and the code enforcement?
Both would be able to enforce it.
Who would be enforcing it, is the question I think we want to know, right?
Would it be a coordination?
I'm sure there will be a coordination, and today it may be the police, tomorrow it might be, code, depending on what they're doing. So it just broadens the tools that are available to the administration.
You could call it in. You go to a store, you
Citizen
could call
arrest.
it in. Right, seriously.
Yeah.
Right?
I think that if we're going to be doing it and many people are involved, there ought to be a coordinated effort. We should know how this is going to work.
Right.
Are we setting the fees, the ticket fees, first offense, second offense?
That's already in the code. For something like this, first time around, it would be a maximum fine of $250.
$250 max? Are we going to stipulate how many offense, and you're going to lose your license after that? Is there something that we want to talk
They're
about?
in the codes, and it does escalate. I don't have it off the top of my head what it's at, but...
After 2 offense, 3 offense,
and where this can also come into play is under the nuisance ordinances where there can be an administrative hearing. This could be used to cancel somebody's certificate of use. So if they're allowing garbage to stack up, or if they're doing various things, all of those things will add up, and this could be one more nail in the coffin, so that somebody's certificate of use could be pulled.
I think we should define that into this.
It's already defined in the code as any other code violation.
Okay. Go ahead.
And just the question is, I'm not sure if I know, or any of us know, if a police officer goes in or the county goes in and they do a sting, they kind of set up somebody to kind of break the law. They say, okay, here, go in, try to buy some cigarettes. They do it. The police come in and, there's a fine, or the state, or the federal. Are code enforcement, are they allowed to kind of set up the sting, so to speak, to entice someone to break the law? Are they given that same lateral?
They could, but I suspect that that type of operation would be handled by the police department.
So if codes issues it, it's because they just happen to be in there buying a soda and then witness
code
it?
sweep,
Cool.
Just going through, checking things, or...
Hi, I'm from Codes, can I buy a loose cigarette? I mean, are they allowed to go in undercover and kind of
They could walk in and say, yes, can I buy a loose cigarette, and if they're sold, then they could pull out and write it. But you were talking about sending in a child or something.
There's various ways you can do it. I just didn't know if codes enforcers had different rules that they could operate by than police officers in terms of catching somebody.
No. They can't. They are given no more. The rules are the same, right? There's right. The rules are the rules. We're dealing with constitutional issues, and you've got probable cause, everything.
So they have the ability to set up a sting operation.
The county's not doing stings. They're actually sending in kids who have proper identifications, and there's nothing illegal on them.
But they're asking someone to go in and break the law in the effort of catching somebody, right? Because the kids are supposed to buy it.
Well, how many times did we buy beer when folks were young, right? And that's not a quote from me. But I'll tell you what, everybody did it. Everybody did it. They had fake IDs. Kids had fake IDs. There's no fake IDs
You
here.
didn't do it because somebody asked you to, though, or unless it was one of your buddies.
No, I'm saying I ever did it. But I did have a lot of friends that did that back in the day.
So,
but again, the point is they're not setting up somebody for the
how do you know?
purpose.
We thought it was the police. We thought it was
we
Codes.
talked to the kids because it's very interesting how they're doing.
I'm talking about the city.
Oh, the city.
You don't know what the city's going to do.
No, I don't know.
So does the city have the ability to go to a child or go to anybody and say, go in, break the law, go in and ask to kind of bait somebody into doing it?
There's no false identification, or there's nothing false on their part. They actually give their proper birth dates and everything else. They have an ID. They show them the IDs. And believe it or not, still these knuckleheads will still sell cigarettes to kids. It's absolutely incredible. So there's no fake setup.
I'm asking because I want to make sure we're
I think it needs to be
fully,
more clarification.
all the questions are asked before we go ahead and do it and find out we should have done that way.
Yes.
I guess I'm sort of feeling like, what is the harm in approving this? It's good if the police department need to use this as a vehicle for the crackdown, they will use it. If they don't, they won't. If code needs to use it, I don't see, we're having an awful lot of discussion about something that I don't think makes a significant difference in things. And we've also got a very long claims agenda.
I think it does. I mean, we're supposed to know what's happening, right? And so we just need to understand it.
It's just like every other code section. We have times when...
But this is going to make the news more than,
we have the noise ordinance.
manhole covers legislation.
How do you enforce that, right? Yeah, it'll be a police officer that gets called because there's a lot of party next to
I think that was a discussion centered around the more of enforcement. But now we understand who the two entities.
Yeah, it'll be, both entities will have the right to...
Any further discussion?
I'm happy to move this because I think anything that we can do to avoid illegal dealings in our city and to discourage our minors from smoking and to get our corner stores that are known for illicit behavior under control a little bit, I'm in full, absolute, complete support of, and I'd be happy to move it.
Do I have a second?
And I will second. As Aaron Bruckmeyer said, we had 38% of our teenagers were smoking.
All in favor?
The surveys. That's big stuff. So, call the question. I vote aye. Yes.
Thank you. Any matter before public safety?
No, sir.
I ask for adjourn.
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Call to order public service and utilities. Mr. Olson. Discuss the water lateral program.
She's getting better. You're getting better.
You still have received a memo concerning the lateral program?
Anybody want one?
Can I have some, please?
Maybe that one's scanned.
No, give it this way. We already sent this way. It's the double-sided one. I'm sorry. Oh, I thought you had one. Okay. Wait, we got it.
Oh, you already got it?
Yeah, we got it. She sent it to you late.
I sent it late. Do you want it? Or you have it?
She got it right there.
It's just, the scanning isn't. How soon is that?
Okay. Mr. Olson, I think we all have it.
In the past, we had discussed the city taking over the responsibility of lateral and water services within its right of way. There was discussion that was never really come to any, no conclusion was reached. Currently in the code is the homeowner's responsibility for their lateral and sewer or water service and water from their property to the road. And there are issues that we have dealt with regarding that. Very recently, there was a situation on Moyson Street, I think, is what initiated this conversation. So there are other alternatives. There are other things that the city could do in relation to this that are up for your consideration. I mean, Paul wrote this memo to provide you with some different, a couple of different alternatives, but that's certainly not limited to that.
In the past, we did purchase some equipment to implement this program. We never defined the program. Where we take the responsibility to responsible taking the whole service line. I don't recommend that. I recommend that we look at the city's right of way. That puts us responsible from the water main, Mr. Olson said, to the property line for a sewer lateral, and from the water main to and including the corporation or the curb box or curb valve. Anything beyond that to the house, including inside the house, would remain the responsibility of the property owner. That would limit our liability of digging their foundation, going through planting, shrubbery, having to replace lawns later on in the spring. It's very common to be responsible for the city right of way, what's under the city right of way. There are some unknowns. One, when you have a winter like we just had, there was a lot of services that broke this year. With the city crew, we're going to be limited to what we can keep up with and keep, the repairs on. And one thing we discussed is whether or not we would use the assistance of an outside licensed plumber in the city to assist us. There's 5 services in the city that need repairing. We're only one crew. There will only be one crew assigned to the lateral program. That would be a cost to the city. Our labor is free with the city. The taxpayers are paying our labor. But if we had to hire an outside contractor to come in and help us with these, that's definitely an impact to the budget if we do it that way. We talked once about putting a fee. There are a number of firms out there that sell service protection. Okay, if we attach the fee to this program, where every residential, no commercial, no fire services, no services over 1 inch, no multiple dwellings, it's just 1, 2, and 3 unit, housing in the city of Schenectady. We attach the fee to that of $4, $5, that would bring the revenue in. It would cover the cost of all the materials, all the labor, the permits. It would also probably give us a little bit of surplus, so if we ran into a problem where we had to look at getting an outside firm in to help us, that would cover those costs. So we could, bring a local plumber in and say, we've got 3 services we're doing, there's 3 more we can't do them. You give us a price per foot. We would have to go out to bid on this, and they go out and do it. We have the funds to pay that. If we do it as just a material only, and we would still use the permit fees, because that's a revenue that we look at every year. There's revenue coming in for permits, so we want to maintain that revenue. We would have them pay for the material, we would cover the labor. But again, we can't keep up, and that's a direct cost to the city. We get the material reimbursed, but that outside plumber would have to be paid, and it would come out of our budget.
In which case, an increase in fees would cover the cost of the fees for service line for the private plumber to assist us. One way or another, somebody has to pay for this. I think the benefit to the taxpayer with the city taking on additional responsibility would be the instance where the homeowner doesn't have the money. Right now, if it is the homeowner's responsibility, it is the taxpayer's responsibility. In some instances, it's the homeowner that occupies the home. In other instances, it's a rental property where the tenants are impacted. If it doesn't get repaired, number one, we allow the individual some time to try to come up with a resource to perform the work. That time creates problems, where we had over the winter with water running down North 3rd Street, with a service break that was on Front Street. That took several weeks for the homeowner to react to, in which case we finally had to dig up the street and shut it off at the main to prevent any more damage to our road or any more inconvenience to the residences that live on North 3rd Street. That took like 3 weeks below freezing temperatures, where we had to go there on a regular basis with crews with salt, where we had to push the ice off of the road, where it created issues for people living there. There's also the problem where plumbers go in and don't properly backfill roads, so they'll come in and make a repair in a road and leave a
3 months later, we've got a hole, we've got to go back.
Yeah, we have problems associated with the way the roads are backfilled. And again, if an individual does not have the resource that is required, we give them 2, 3, 4 weeks, and then we have no choice but to shut the water off, as we did. When we do that, we have to issue a notice to vacate. So we have to tell people they have to leave that building. In some instances, it's the owner occupant. In other instances, it's tenants. And in most instances, it's the first time that they're made aware of the fact that it's even the responsibility of the property owner. In a lot of instances, people have no clue that that's their responsibility until it's broken and they have to come up with $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 to repair it.
We can act a lot quicker if it was a responsibility for the city, because just as a courtesy, when we get the notice that there's a service leak, we issue a notice. It gets mailed, it gets posted, but you have to give that property owner time to call different plumbers. He's not going to. They're not going to call the first plumber, whatever the price is. They've got to shop it. They've got to get estimates from 2, 3, 4 plumbers, and that sometimes takes a while, especially if it's a weekend or there's a holiday involved, or plumbers are busy.
We have the excavator. We purchased the excavator. It's in stock. We use it right now for laterals, for hydrants, and for main repairs. We did not buy the mole. The mole is not a long lead time item. It's not an expensive piece of equipment. We would have to buy that. And we did not hire the plumber.
The plumber's helper, yeah.
The plumber's helper that would actually coordinate. He would do the program. He would be the person in the street. He would be leading the crew. Those are the only 2 things, those and amendment to the code to take the responsibility of ownership and how we're going to perform this work and who's responsible for what and how you would collect the fees to cover the cost of the service. Those are the issues that need to be decided by council. and we're willing to assist you in any way that you, so that's why we're here tonight.
Mr. Erickson.
So, question I have, I think you've mentioned, I just ask you to repeat it. This is for residential?
Correct.
And then commercial would not be included? What about like in our neighborhoods where there's, a store, for instance, like a two-family house, a store downstairs, or?
Commercial.
This is all commercial, okay.
So assessment codes 210, 220, 230. So single, 2, and 3-family residences only.
Okay.
And those that they have 1 inch or less services.
Yeah, it's maximum 1 inch service.
And there may even be some exclusions in that category.
Yeah, if there's a 3/4 inch service.
Or the service, the lateral service is 564 feet long. Believe it or not, we have those.
It's pretty long services that go under island streets, the mains on the one side and there's.
We have services that go through other people's property, through easements.
Alleyways.
Other people's properties that go through the backyard and through the backyard of somebody else's, or the side yard of somebody else's, then across the road. Things that are,
or
a lot of
or
those.
into somebody else's house and out there, they're out there.
There's a couple that go through one house and then connect to the other.
There could be a few exceptions.
So, Carol, you said you have one crew that you're looking at. What would be your estimate to do a replacement of a 30-foot line? 1 inch line from the main, 30 foot to the curb box?
Depends on.
It doesn't depend. You got to know, you haven't half the idea of what it's going to run you. If you're talking about digging the street, breaking up the street, running a brand new 1 inch line, approximately 30 feet to the homeowner.
And that's going to vary, because in the city, you've got a lot of different digging aspects. If you go over in the north end, it's all shale.
Okay.
If you go up to Woodlawn, it's all sand. Some parts of Woodlawn, you can't even go down 4 feet.
Well, it's also, if you were in Woodlawn, depending on where the water table is, that could be costly, because you may have to put a trench box in the road, and you may have to de-water the site. You may
have the service we figure about.
On State Street, you may have a 36-inch storm sewer and a 24-inch water main, or Albany Street.
So how do you know, you're talking about you have ideas of numbers here, so you got to have some ideas of what each of these jobs are going to cost us in order for us to break even, right?
Well, you're not going to break even.
We're not going to break it, the department's not going to break even. No. We're going to lose money on the deal.
If we do it where you're just having the property owner pay for the material,
and the permit fee, you're more than likely we're going to incur an expense that would be covered by your rates.
Well, I'm against charging any fee to any property owner to pay, because I just got mine replaced 2 years ago. So for you to charge me whatever you're looking to charge me for a line that's going to outlast my life cycle here, I would not want to do. I would have to opt out on that. And the other question, if you're going to replace the line, most likely you're going to still have to have a plumber at the other end to take it from the curb box back into the house, because you still need that 1 inch line, right? You require them to do, as we call it, the Vince Riggi law, you need a 1 inch law, right?
Only in new construction.
What's that?
Only new construction, the 1 inch line. However, if you're replacing the...
If I'm replacing the line now.
If you're replacing...
More than likely, yes.
Yes.
But if you've got a 1 inch copper service already in your house, and for some reason it broke between the main and the curb box, you wouldn't run a whole new 1 inch service on the house.
I'd be at 3/4.
But again, on the flip side, if you had a service break and it's a galvanized line, we're going to be responsible for the first half.
Up to the curb box.
The property owner then would be informed that the second half is not to code. Right. It is a galvanized line, and it would have to be replaced, and they would have to contract with a plumber to do the second half.
But the water would not be running down the road, creating an ice condition that is impacting the quality.
So they can fix that second, depart from the curb box of their house at a time in the future?
We'd have to give them a little time, but once you know that that's not the code and you touched it, you really got to bring it to code.
Immediately.
Okay? It's a galvanized line or it's leaded line. It's got to be replaced. So
they'd have to get a plumber, pull permits.
So what about, could we, and again, I understand what you're talking about, it's a high cost to anybody. I mean, ours was $5,000. So it's a very high expense. So again, we're talking about this, you have to be current on your tax and that. Would there be a way that we could work this program out through the city? The city doing replacing the line, could we add that expense, whatever that cost would be, to their tax bill?
That would be up.
That's the plan.
If they're but I thought we're making everybody pay it. I thought
one option.
Okay, it's another option.
The other option could be that the individual pays for the permit fee, pays for the materials, and again, the labor is already in the budget. It's already being incurred. The only other expense associated with this would be a fees for service line for the private plumbers that if we needed assistance of a private plumber to perform work, we only have 6, 7 people in our water department. And our water maintenance, we have a lot of water maintenance that we have to maintain. There will be time we could have.
Right now, that's what that noise is.
That noise is our water maintenance crew working on a valve where we anticipate a valve like this impacting Verizon's basement. They're very good. They do a great job. They're very efficient. You would have the capability of having a crew that did primarily service leaks at all times.
So the cost impact would be strictly associated with a private contractor coming in and assisting the city crew for anything above, we couldn't keep up with. If you had 6 services go this week, there's no way we're going to get 6 services done in a week. They're either going to leak or we're going to hire somebody to help us.
Ms. King.
Or a 36-inch water main broke, or a 24-inch water main broke somewhere, I'm going to be utilizing my resource to fix that major distribution main, in which case if there was a lateral at the time or service that needed to be replaced, we would
Would you envision like hiring a number of plumbers to be like on a call list, or would you envision just you dictating the lowest bid and just having one?
What I thought we would do is do a request for proposals to do a cost per foot. So you know, plumber A may be $20 per foot, okay? Plumber B may be $23, and we will go with the lowest. But then, the lowest may be so busy that he says, I can't get to you, so we have to go to the next one. So we have to have a program that allows us, to get the job done.
Yeah. Because I remember when we talked about this before, that was one of the concerns, that plumbers were coming to us saying, wait a minute.
Yeah, you're taking away their work.
But now we just do half. We'll share it.
Mr. Riggi.
Well, my concern is, what Mr. Kosher brought up too, I mean, if somebody had a water lateral replaced in the last 20 years with copper, they're not going to need another, so why should they pay on a regular basis? The other problem is, about how many permits do we issue a week for, for water lateral? How many do we do a week?
About 100, 125 water services a year.
A year?
Yeah.
A year.
And that's not, it's not a week, it's more obviously
in season. But my concern is if our city crew gets so overloaded, if you have more than one go at the same day, which it could happen, are they going to be, water still could be running. Why can't we?
Again, we'd have the capability of getting assistance from
Because I mean, insurance, believe it or not, I've been hanging on to this since we talked about this. It isn't all that expensive. It's $64 a year.
Most of the insurance policies only cover you on your property, not beyond your property. So a homeowner could get the insurance to cover their section of their lateral or their service, and then we would have the responsibility of the portion that's within the right of way. So that way they would be...
I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, the homeowner, most of the time, they're not going to just replace from the main to the curb box. You're going to replace the whole lateral. Why would you put on one new tire on a car? It'd be kind of crazy.
Insurance policies only cover the homeowner for the portion that is on the homeowner's private property. Yeah. So they would, in essence, if right now you are responsible for your entire thing, and if the entire thing had to be replaced and you had a policy that only covered you for the portion that was on your property, you would then have to hire a plumber to do the remaining portion because it wouldn't be covered by the policy.
I think it's very common that in most municipalities, the main to the curb box or the main to the parking lot is covered by the municipality. That's common. It's the portion after that into the property that municipalities don't want to go on private property and work near basements, foundations. They don't want that risk of, well, I didn't have a leak in my cellar until you put this in. So,
unless the municipality forces you to do it.
That's why the plumber has insurance.
Mr. Wilson, you said there was a cost that a part that we had to buy. In addition to a plumber, paying for a plumber, there was some part that we need, the mole, is that what's it called?
Yes, a mole is a device that burrows under the ground.
How, and what's the cost for that?
Probably like $6,500 for a 3-inch boring mole.
I think that was already in the...
Yeah, it's in the budget, but what I haven't done...
Yeah, we just haven't...
haven't purchased it yet because we haven't implemented the program. That's something we would only need if we implement the program. The excavator, it gets used daily, so that piece of equipment we use.
Same thing with the additional plumber's helper. The reason we have a lot of fun hiring that individual is, well, yeah, it's our budget too. I think it's going to be difficult to find this person. But secondly, you haven't implemented this program. But less work for us if you don't. I mean, we're not here looking for additional work. If this is something you're interested in, again, part of my job is to have to tell an individual that you need to leave your house. That's one of the worst parts of my job. In particular, if it's someone who has resided there for 50 years, and they, in that 50-year period, paid their taxes and didn't do anything wrong, had no idea that they were responsible for a water service or a sewer lateral, and now it's broken, and they don't have $5,000 or $4,000 or $6,000. And we're telling them that you need to find it, you need to come up with it, because if you don't, within the next couple of weeks, we're going to throw you out of your house. Or going to a tenant and saying, the landlord is walking away from this, they're not being responsible, we're going to have to shut your water off, you're going to have to leave in the middle of a school year.
But isn't that different though? The landlord's, well, you're saying because of the taxes here,
it doesn't
Now, the city we could make it so that the city would just do it and throw it in the tax bill, right? And if taxes being foreclosed, I mean, there's a way to
and again, you can mutual alternatives. You can have alternative where we could do, the city could have its crew do the portion in the city right away. The city can hire a plumber to do the rest of it if necessary, put the whole thing on the tax bill. You have a lot of different options available to you. That's up to you.
But you have to look at, are they current with their taxes? I mean, if you want to do this on somebody who's 3 years behind.
But if they aren't, you're going to let the water run?
Even if they're not, when you raise the water, and the neighbors are suffering, or the tenants are suffering.
But again, you don't have to have that caveat. You could say you're going to do this whether they're current on their taxes or not. Again, this is up to you as the legislative body. Right now, I think if nothing else, we're getting the word out to people that they are responsible for the entire thing. And it's important that people realize that, understand that, and are prepared if something is to happen where they have to have it replaced.
Is there further discussion or questions?
This would be, well, earlier we talked about valve replacement, and we want to get that going. This here is something that could be modify the code when we revisit the code, because it certainly needs to be revisited and look at the way rates are set, and look at what Homer is responsible for and clarify it, because it needs to be clarified. That would be the time, I believe, to do this. So if you look at this as a part of a comprehensive rewrite of the code to make it, I mean, right now, if you read it, it is archaic. It talks about liveries, it talks about
houses.
Yes, it's ridiculous how old and outdated it is. It needs to be updated, and I think, again, we should look at what you believe is in the best interest of the taxpayers.
I think the one thing you should know, too, and I know if somebody just had their service done, why would you want to pay $4 a month for a year, okay?
Right.
If there is a surplus of money, what it does do is we reuse that right back in our infrastructure with more valves, improving the sewer system, improving the water system, and all that does is, instead of borrowing again, we have the surplus money to do it. We save, we're not borrowing with interest. We still pass those costs on to the property owners anyway, because as we borrow, it's just that service and we have to increase the rates again.
And the good news is your water in the city is very, very, very expensive, extremely expensive. One of the reasons that it doesn't pay to meter water to residents to a flat rate is because water is so inexpensive. The cost of the meter really adds a significant amount to the cost of providing the service, to the point where it's going to take us over 50 years to break even after implementing a meter that's going to last 20 or maybe 25 at most.
Mr. Erickson, you had a question, and then Mr.
So it's a very low cost service.
I mean, first I want to thank you guys for coming up and talking about this yet again. This is clearly
we'll do whatever you want.
It's a complex issue with so many different decision points. It's a tough one to wrangle because of A, the cost, B, the 100 different variables we can implement, C, then you think about the people who just replaced it recently going, well, I'm never going to benefit. So there's a lot of things. One of the things I want to understand in terms of the cost, maybe Ms. DeGenova can address it, in terms of our water fees over the last couple of years, did we raise fees the last few years each year? Because I thought that last year we raised the fee in anticipation of this and said the legislation will come later, but we need the revenue in case we pass the legislation. And that's what I was kind of under that impression.
We raised the fees.
I'd like Ms. DeGenova, I just want to find out from the financial perspective.
Well, and I will defer to LaFawn. Raising the fees, I believe, was not specifically addressing the lateral program. However, I do recall that in 2 fee-for-services lines, one in water and one in sewer, during the budget process, we put in upwards of maybe $100,000 in each water and sewer fund for the lateral program, because at the time we were thinking that we were going to be doing outside contractors. So my question with this memo, and I think it's too early to really address that piece, but it's important to keep in mind, is as Commissioner Olson and Paul go forward and give you ideas, depending on how we go, there may be some money in the budget that's been programmed that isn't needed, and if it's not needed, can be available to the city to reprogram, or maybe it will turn out that it's needed to fund this. That is the one thing I can.
And the rate.
And Paul, you confirm that?
So there is some money in there that we programmed, the budget was balanced so that there's
That's in the
operating budget to cover some of this cost.
There's money in the
Water
fund and money in the sewer.
100,000 each, or?
Around that, 120, 100.
Okay.
Yes. So depending on how we decide to go, that will be there to support this program, maybe in another line or available.
Partially, yeah.
So just to,
Okay.
And we have funded capital funds for the various equipment that they.
And water rates stayed the same in 12 and 13. In 14, there was an increase, and that increase was to reduce our borrowing. So we did increase the water rates so that we had money in the operating budget to do valve replacement and water mains rather than go out to bond and borrow and then pay the interest on it. So.
Yep, I understand.
Ms. Barrasso.
Really more of a statement than a question, in the fact that this keeps coming up and we keep talking about it, but we don't go forward in any sort of way, either yay or nay. It just kind of, we talk about it and then it just disappears. So I would just like, from either the committee chair standpoint or a council member standpoint or Mr. LaFawn and Mr. Olson or whatever, to know how we're going to go forward on this so we actually come to a resolution and we work through this, and whether we're going to support a lateral program, whether we're not going to support a lateral program, and what that lateral program is going to look like. Maybe we just put it on again for 2 weeks, I don't know. But I would like to see this on the agenda until we come to some sort of resolution one way or another, because we have situations like the Stockade come up. We have situations like Moyston Street come up. Then we talk about it, talk about it, talk about it, talk about it, and then it disappears until the next situation comes up. So, I just want to
That's why we brought it up.
go on record as saying, I want to follow through on this.
Mr. Kosher.
Yep, again, we talked about it earlier, we're going to look to make those changes to the city code with water. Maybe, again, this is going to be a very opportune time to talk about the whole code as a whole, include it into this new code that we're looking to do, or not include it, but at least that's where I think we should do this. And again, at least we'll have some results of this eventually, but I don't know how it works. Do we put a subcommittee together, or, because I'd be willing to sit on it as well, and I don't know if anybody else here from the council would, but I think that's really the way to move with it. Include it in our new city code under water, and just bring it up to date where it should be. At least we'll go one step at a time, because that code, like I said, is so outdated right now, rather than losing this again, as Ms. Barrasso said.
Make sure, who pays for what.
Right, absolutely,
That
yeah.
discussion keeps coming up. Mr. Woodavera.
Can you talk about the remaining on this fund going to be used to do something else? I mean, should we keep that funding for roller over into future lateral program?
If you were to sort of sell it like the programs they offer, if there was a $4 fee a month per residential unit, $48 a year to give them the coverage. If we had a year that maybe only 50 services went, so there's a surplus of money, now in the water and sewer funds. We can reinvest that money into the system, or you can keep it in that fund balance going forward. Maybe the next year there's 275 services that go.
Or again, you could use it to reduce debt service for the need. You're always going to have the need for capital replacement.
And water
So rather than having to borrow the money to make the capital replacement, you have money on hand that you can pay for it out of pocket, which is what we just did. Which makes a lot of sense, because again, it's not a maybe, it's a definite that you're going to need to do a valve replacement program and a main replacement program. So one thing we're very proud of, with a very small workforce, our water distribution system, our well field, is in incredibly good condition. It's up to date, it's current. We don't have the issues that a lot of municipalities have with their water distribution system. And that's your lifeblood. I mean, without water, your quality of life pretty much comes to an end.
So, can we,
we're
you
fortunate.
have another question?
Yeah, how did you come up with $4 to $5?
Again, we looked at some of the pricing that some of the private companies were charging, $5 and $6. Workman's is finally, we're doing for less, you know, I mean, that's why we brought it to you.
We look at the number of permits that are currently being pulled for the repairs of water services and sanitary sewer laterals, and kind of try to estimate about how much we think we would expend. We don't know. Until we have experience doing it, we wouldn't give you exact
You know, we bring in over $100,000 a year in revenue from plumbing permits, okay? We would lose that, so we need to still have that revenue. It's part of our revenue stream that we count on and rely on in the water and sewer fund. So those are things that we, when you set a fee, you've got to offset some of the revenues you're going to lose.
If you have to do this in-house, how many staff would you, is required?
You would need to get...
Not to hire outside contractor, but do it in-house.
To do it in-house?
Yes.
What we presented right now is to have one crew out there because we have one excavator.
How much is the crew?
It would be 4 people on crew. You would have your heavy equipment operator, because when you have heavy equipment for the excavator, 106, and 2 MEOs and the plumber's helper. Maybe connection.
We would have to hire one additional individual at this point, which would be the plumber's helper, in order to make this happen.
Which is already budgeted for.
It is budgeted.
It's already budgeted, yes. So if you don't do this, you have a position that's budgeted that could go away, and you have some money to do some service line in both the water and sewer.
Because if we do it, the reason why I question it, because it can be costly hire a private contractor to do that portion of work for that one. Whereas the city could pick
Because the labor, we're relying on the labor being paid for through the tax base now, the water and sewer fund. So those employees are there. But if we get, overloaded, that's where the labor is not going to be free no more.
I assume they're doing other things, aren't they? They're not replacing them. They're already on the payroll. I guess they're working someplace, I hope, anyhow.
There are times when they're busier than others. And again, we only have 7, 6, 7.
I mean, this time of the year, must be busy, right?
We're busy all the time. We have to flush 2,600 hydrants, which, through the year, we drop seasonal employees. We don't have the 5 seasonal employees no more in the water department. So we're always busy.
We're going to be bringing this back again for discussion, so can we...
I just want to get a sense, is there a consensus that we want to keep pursuing this? Or are there people who just say, no, I don't want to go do
Could I
this?
work on the codes? Could we work on the city code, the water chapter? And perhaps mesh it into that? If the committee doesn't mind?
Again, we came here to request
And you do. Whoever wants to work.
Now you want to combine things before you want to separate them.
What's that? No, I want to see if we should include it in the codes if we can. I mean, I don't know. I mean,
So are people generally, though, want to do something with this?
I think we should continue to discuss this and move it forward. It's a good program, and I think let's discuss it.
But we need to have in this process, we need to have a time frame so we can get it done. If we're going to do it, let's get it done. We've been talking about it for a while.
Keep it on the agenda.
Well, not forever.
Not forever, I mean, but
under old business.
2 more cycle, max.
Well, I think that I would like to see if you can come back to us in 2 weeks and talk about what the program will look like in terms of the cost share. That we talked about maybe the
I understand what you're saying, but they've already thrown out several options. And before they can even discuss language and so on, putting things together, they need to know what you want.
If anything at all. I mean, again, we're here because you asked us to be here to discuss this again, and this, I'll guarantee you, this conversation will come up again, more than likely after you have a situation where you have another situation where it's unaffordable for people, and they come to you and they want you to try to do something to assist them, and it flies in the face of the city code. So it's like, well, what happened to that lateral program? I thought we were going to do that. Let's talk about that again. And again, you are doing that for the same reasons we brought it up in the first place, because you want to be able to provide people with more help than is currently available for them under those circumstances. It can be pretty onerous to promote that kind of money.
Yes.
So, I mean, given the various options we have, I'll throw out, I guess, my preference. I think there's multiple ways that would be acceptable, but I think that the city should do the repairs from the main to the shut-off, curb box, to call it. I think that in terms of how we charge, right? Do we charge everybody just jack up the rate for everyone across the board? I think it's tough because some people who just replaced it will never have to do it again in their lifetime or their kids' lifetime. So is there a way to put a fee for when that section of your property breaks, right? The city comes in and does it and charges a flat rate, regardless of if you have sand or shale or high or low or water. And I'll just throw out a number, it could be a different number, $250 or $500 or $1,000, some number to say, that's what it costs, we're gonna come in, we're gonna do it for that rate, but if it doesn't break, your water rate doesn't change, right? And so, but it's not gonna be the same price as dishing out $5,000, because...
Or dishing out $48 for a whole year.
Right, or 48, you're not paying the $48 a year, you're not paying the $5,000 to hire somebody else to do it, which is, I think, difficult for a lot of people.
If you paid $50 a year,
just right,
and your service, how long do you think a service lasts? 40 years?
Mine was going to outlast me. I can feel it.
Company service?
Yeah.
It should last 40 years.
40 years. Let's say 40 years. At $50 a year is $2,000.
Okay, I don't know.
So that's if you paid $50 a year, it's $2,000.
Yeah.
If it lasts 30 and it costs $4,000 to replace, I think you're better off paying the $50
30 years, I think
a year.
the rates for the plumber are going to be higher too.
Well, not to mention that there are some places in the city, it's no fault of the homeowner where the acidity in the soil eats up the lateral faster.
Right.
And I think I do know this. There are people tell us, my God, there are people in neighborhoods, we seem to replace our services an awful lot. Why is that? And
So,
it's
and I understand. I guess my thought is in 30 years, it's not going to be $4. Somewhere down the road, someone's going to say, "I'd like to make it 5. Let's make it 6. Let's make it 7. Let's make it 8."
These are options.
Right. My thought would be to
Marion would like
Yes,
to be.
yes.
The chair would like
I don't
to
think
be.
we're going to be able to make a
No,
decision
we're not.
tonight.
No.
And we spent a lot of time discussing it.
Table.
I'd like you to come back in 2 weeks if you don't mind. And we can consider all of the things that we've talked about tonight and be able opportunity to make a more definitive decision at that time.
Well, and again, as I said, we would also like to make some recommendations as to
I'll send-
changes to the code to bring it up to date. That, again, I'm sure will come with some spirited conversations and discussions.
I'll send out an email and people can give their input.
Great.
Yes.
Just one other
Spend the time
point,
with you.
this particular legislation request form is 2 parts. So we also need to deal with the change in the city code related to the mandate for specific inch.
Say that again.
This is the
3/4 inch,
Mr.
1 inch.
Riggi's.
Oh,
Okay.
a memo went out, didn't it, on
Yes.
that?
Yes, we're not requiring anybody to
Yeah.
replace it.
Enforcing that,
As long as
yeah.
it's copper. So we
For
haven't.
a new service, though,
until-
but for a new service.
New service.
A complete new service, we would require 1 inch.
So what is the current code?
The current code,
It's a little vague.
it's a little vague.
That's why we got to redo the code.
It usually is water and sewer. The current code is vague in a lot of things.
It's very vague, Marion. It's terrible.
Mr.
That's why we
Wayne?
got to redo it.
Carl and Paul, do you think you could lay out options
For the lateral?
for this discussion to follow, as a follow-up? You could, 4, 5, 6 different types of options that would...
Right.
Yes.
Yes.
Paul already did his memo, we can think of a couple.
Yeah, well, you're trying to think to be
But
creative.
I think there's the option of the format, but then the price that goes with it. Like you can do it
Right.
this way for this amount, this way for
Well,
this
you gotta
amount.
understand, if you did it for material,
Like we can have that in
a
writing.
30-foot copper service versus a 180-foot copper service is gonna be
If you're
different.
no longer going to charge permit fees, for
Right.
example,
Yeah.
you can anticipate losing $130,000 a year. To make that revenue, so that the person who is already, if you don't want to charge everybody,
Right.
so that the person that sort of just put one in a couple of years ago doesn't have to pay anything more, just to make up that revenue, let's say you anticipate, again, you have to try to anticipate 130 services going in next year.
How much is the
130,000, you're going to charge $1,000 a piece just to make up your permit
You got a
fee.
street cut permit,
75?
you got a street cut permit, you got a plumbing permit, you're talking probably around $400 for the permit.
In permits.
Yeah.
So if my lateral breaks, why wouldn't I just give the city $500 and then you guys fix it?
And getting up for $500.
Well, every resident.
Can we get our
We need to
questions?
wrap up here.
Yeah, we do.
Let's get it
Can
done.
we send the
We'll
questions
give
that
you
you
some
have?
alternate, yes.
The email?
We can help it out.
Thank you.
I'm glad you don't, but there's 6 other of us. It's 8 o'clock and we have 11 things on this claims agenda.
Thank you.
Happy St. Patty's
Thanks for the,
Day.
yes. Yeah.
There's going to be more.
Move to adjourn?
Yes, move to adjourn. Entertain a movement to adjourn. Second?
Who else on the committee?
I think it's Mr. Is it- or is it Mr. Ross?
Oh, me, second.
All those in favor?
Aye. Call to
Okay,
order
we're-
claims. First item is recognize the week of April 6th through 12th as National Crime Victims' Rights Week.
Very good.
I will move that.
Entertain a motion?
I will move it.
Second.
Aye.
Mr. Riggi.
All in favor? Yeah.
Most is this executive session?
Wait, this item was not...
Hold on 1 second. We have a question here.
Well, I just wanted to remind people that John Coluccio and Luan Karn are here. So that-
Yeah, I just, before we went on executive session, I just want to take the open session thing. Motion to go in
Okay,
executive
move to go
session.
into executive session.
Second. Number 1. All in favor?
Yes.
Number 1 is passed.
Moved and seconded just for the...
Do you want to recess claims and I'll reopen government?